Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Konoha. My wife is Kaguya. Chapter 76. Chen Nan, what do you want to do? Xiao Zhanren said with fear on his face as he stepped back. What do I want to do? Brother Jian, you are so forgetful. Did you forget so quickly about beating my brother just now? Chen Nan said with a smile and walked towards Xiao Zhanren step by step, scaring the latter. Keep moving back. Xiao Zhanren was not a fool. He naturally knew that Chen Nan was here for revenge. Now he has only two options, either apologize and admit his mistake, or fight to the death. As for apologizing, Xiao Zhanren is one of the 4 bullies in the school. He feels that he cannot afford to embarrass this person. After all, many of the people surfing the internet in this internet cafe are students who skip classes, and they all recognize Xiao Zhanren's face. Once he apologizes in public today, I'm afraid he will never be able to hold his head up again in school. Chen, don't be too arrogant. There are more than 10 of my brothers here. If you really take action, you won't get any benefits. Xiao Zhanren said in a low voice, hoping to scare Chen Nan away. After all, he had more than 10 brothers present, while Chen Nan only had 3 of them. Although Jang Xiaomi was also there, Xiao Zhanren felt that she should just come to watch the show. After all, he had always been on the same page with her and had no grudges. Chen Nan took a puff of cigarette and sprayed it on Xiao Zhanren's face. Really? Then ask your brothers to come out. Xiao Zhanren was so angry that even though he hadn't made a move yet, Chen Nan's puff of smoke on his face was equivalent to hitting him in the face. Brothers, come here and kill him. Xiao Zhanren glanced around and shouted loudly. Suddenly everyone in the internet cafe turned their heads, and then more than a dozen students threw away their headphones, stood up and rushed over. Chen Nan counted there were 12 people in total, including 13 with Xiao Zhanren. Yes, there are quite a lot of people. Chen Nan nodded with a smile. Suddenly his face turned cold, and he kicked him directly. Chen Nan hit him as he said without any warning, but Xiao Zhanren was startled and he hurriedly wanted to avoid, but Chen Nan's speed was too fast. His brain just reacted, but his body did not move. Then he was kicked in the stomach. Thump! Xiao Zhanren flew 2 or 3 meters away and sat down on the ground, clutching his stomach and screaming, grinning in pain and breaking out in cold sweat. Holy shit, if you dare to hit Brother Jian, brothers will kill him. As soon as the boys saw Xiao Zhanren being kicked away, they immediately screamed and rushed towards Chen Nan. Chen Nan sneered. Instead of retreating, he advanced, raised his leg and kicked him. Bang, bang, a kick came out from both sides. The 2 boys who were rushing at the front were kicked out by Chen Nan. The boy behind him was knocked down to a large extent. They screamed again and again. They stared at Chen Nan warily for a while, but they didn't. People dared to come forward. At this moment, Xiao Zhanren had stood up, holding his stomach and staring at Chen Nan with some vicious eyes, wishing to eat his flesh and drink his blood. A bunch of trash, Chen Nan sneered, and while everyone was stunned, he strode towards Xiao Zhanren, stretched out his hand and poked his chest. You are my grandson, and he has learned to play with knives before his hair has even grown. Is that right? Which hand hit the person? Xiao Zhanren reached out and tried to pull Chen Nan's hand away, but Chen Nan was much faster than him. Snapped. With a loud slap, Chen Nan hit Xiao Zhanren's face hard, making his face swollen. Normally, it would take a few minutes for Xiao Zhanren's face to become swollen after being slapped, but Chen Nan didn't know how it was slapped. Xiao Zhanren's face immediately became red and swollen with 5 bright red bumps. The fingerprints are particularly noticeable. The entire internet cafe was silent, and everyone took a breath of air. Who is Xiao Zhanren? A master of the 4th level of karate, one of the 4 top leaders in Yutan Middle School. There is no one who doesn't recognize him among the students who surf the internet here. In the past, no one would have dared to provoke this school bully. Even the other 3 school bullies would have given him some points. But now, Chen Nan slapped him in the face in public, and the slap was so loud. Everyone looked at this side dumbfounded, looking forward to what would happen next. Xiao Zhanren was also annoyed by this slap. He felt that his face was seriously damaged, and veins popped up on his face. He cursed. Chen Nan, I'm going to kill your mother. Then he clenched his fist and pointed at Chen Nan's face. Smash it up. At this moment, he had forgotten Chen Nan's cruel methods and the last time he was brutally tortured on the rooftop. Seeing that his fist was getting closer and closer to Chen Nan, Xiao Zhanren's eyes flashed with excitement. However, the next moment, there was only a pop sound, and there was a buzz in his head, and he almost had a concussion. His fist failed to hit Chen Nan, but Chen Nan's slap hit him hard on the face. Ding dong dong. A tooth flew out of Xiao Zhanren's mouth and fell on the floor tiles with a crisp sound. Last time on the rooftop, Chen Nan knocked out several of his teeth. Later, they had dentures implanted, and the one that flew off just now was a denture. I ask you again, which hand did it? Chen Nan said coldly. Xiao Zhanren glared at Chen Nan angrily, saliva and blood flying from his mouth, and roared, "Don't push your boundaries or my brother will definitely kill you." Ignoring Xiao Zhanren's threat, Chen Nan grabbed his collar with one hand and slapped him mercilessly. Crack, crackle, crackle. Loud slaps echoed in the internet cafe, and everyone stared blankly. They had only seen such violent scenes in movies before. Xiao Zhanren was so dizzy from being slapped that he kept screaming, and a few more dentures flew out. The pain made him tremble all over, and he could no longer care about his face. He hurriedly begged for mercy. "Brother Nan, I was wrong. In the future, I really don't dare anymore, please let me go." Snapped. Chen Nan slapped her for the last time and said, "You can't understand people. I want to ask you which hand you hit people with." Xiao Zhanren was so frightened that he trembled and did not dare to speak. He was a little scared. According to Chen Nan's way of doing things, if he spoke out, his hand would probably be broken. Chen Nan slapped her ears twice more. "I'm asking you, do you hear me? If you hear me, make a sound. If you can't hear me, I'll keep slapping you until you hear it." Xiao Zhanren was sweating in pain, covering his face and nodding quickly. "I heard it, I heard it." "Then tell me, is it the left hand or the right hand? Otherwise, I will interrupt both of them for you." Chen Nan said coldly. His cold eyes were like two rays of cold electricity, without any emotion, which made people's hearts tremble just by looking at it. "Brother Nan, I can't remember, please let me go." Xiao Zhanren covered his face and looked at Chen Nan with a grieved face. He didn't want to have one of his hands broken. Although it is said that with the current medical level, even if a broken bone can be reattached, pain is still unavoidable. Chen Nan's face turned cold, and she stretched out her hand to press on his shoulder. Suddenly, Xiao Zhanren's legs went weak, and he knelt on the ground with a bang, unable to stand up. "You don't remember, do you?" Chen Nan nodded, looked at Zhu Baji and Zhang Zhongyi, and said, "Why are you still standing there? Come here and serve young Master Xiao, let him restore his memory." Upon hearing Chen Nan's words, the two guys rushed over. "If you dare to poke me in the butt, I'll beat you to death." Zhu Baji rushed up and slapped Xiao Zhanren hard on the face, making the latter roll his eyes and almost fall down. Zhang Zhongyi was not polite. He rushed forward and waved his fist to greet Xiao Zhanren. Just like that, Xiao Zhanren was pushed to the ground by the two of them and violently tortured. He kept screaming in pain and begging for mercy. The students in the internet cafe who were skipping classes and surfing the internet were shocked. "Isn't Xiao Zhanren a 4th-level karate master? Why do you dare not fight back after being abused like this?" Jang Xiaomi on the side was also a little dumbfounded. She originally thought that Xiao Zhanren was at the 4th level of karate, and Chen Nan was not weak in martial arts. The fight between these two people should be a fierce fight, but she did not expect that it was completely the same. A one-sided beating. Yes, not a fight, but a beating, a pure beating. This fool is too weak. Zhang Xiaomi slapped his forehead and sat down beside him in disappointment, watching them beat people. Xiao Zhanren rolled on the ground in pain. It wasn't that he didn't want to fight back, but he knew that he couldn't beat Chen Nan. If he fought back, he would only receive more severe abuse. "Stop fighting, I said, it's your left hand, it's your left hand." Xiao Zhanren couldn't bear it anymore and cried out in pain. Chen Nan nodded, signaled Zhu Baji and Zhang Zhongyi to let go, and then kicked Xiao Zhanren on his left hand. A creepy sound came out. Chen Nan's kick caused Xiao Zhanren's arm to deform instantly and his arm to break. The pain made him burst into tears. He covered his arm and rolled on the ground. His screams were louder than killing a pig. Terrible. Seeing such a scene, everyone gasped and subconsciously took a step back, positioning Chen Nan as a devil in their hearts. He really broke Xiao Zhanren's hand. Especially Xiao Zhanren's younger brothers, several of them were trembling with fear and stepped back step by step. They were secretly glad that they didn't rush to help just now. Otherwise, Xiao Zhanren might not be the only one who had his hand broken. Reaching out to lift Xiao Zhanren off the ground, Chen Nan said coldly, "Remember, come to me if you have anything to do in the future, otherwise I will break your 3 legs next time." Xiao Zhanren's face was twisted in pain, and he nodded hurriedly, "I don't dare anymore, I really don't dare anymore." He knew very well that the 3 legs Chen Nan mentioned were 2 thighs, plus the calf, unique to men in the middle. "Get out." Chen Nan threw him away casually, throwing him on the ground like trash. If Xiao Zhanren was granted amnesty, he rolled and crawled and hurriedly rushed towards the door, really pissing himself off. The boss had been beaten away, but the younger brothers still dared to stay. They followed Xiao Zhanren and ran out like a swarm. "It's so boring to finish the fight so quickly," Jang Xiaomi said, a little disappointed, then stood up, pulled Chen Nan and walked outside. "You've finished your business, go play with me." Zhu Baji and Zhang Zhongyi looked at each other and hurriedly chased after them. "Brother and sister-in-law, where are you going?" "Get a room and do some work," Zhang Xiaomi said completely shamelessly, which made Zhu Baji and Zhang Zhongyi stop immediately. Everyone said it was so clear. If they followed, it would be really embarrassing. "Big brother is awesome. Even sister Mi can do it," Zhu Baji said with admiration on his face. "You must find time to ask big brother for advice on how to pick up girls." Zhang Zhongyi sighed, "As fat as you can never hope to pick up girls in this life. Get lost. You're just jealous of the fat on my body." Zhang Zhongyi was completely speechless. After Chen Nan and Zhang Xiaomi left the internet cafe, they rushed towards the bar on their motorcycles. Perhaps because of the embarrassment last time, Zhang Xiaomi rode more gracefully this time. He started smoothly and basically drove at a constant speed on the road. 20 minutes later, the two came to a bar called Zhanghu. Normal bars are only open at night, but this one is open 24 hours a day. There were not many people inside. After the two of them walked in, Zhang Xiaomi ordered a few bottles of whiskey, then found a booth and sat down. "For the sake of saving my life last time, I'll treat you to this drink today." Quote. Chen Nan picked up the wine glass and shook it, stared at her and smiled. "You don't want to get me drunk and then take advantage of me, do you?" Zhang Xiaomi rolled her eyes. "Are I so shameless?" "It's because you are shameless that I have to be careful." Chen Nan sighed. Zhang Xiaomi almost died of depression. Was she shameless? "Did you shamelessly go in front of him, Chen Nan?" With a cold snort, Zhang Xiaomi said angrily. "Since you said so, I will get you drunk today, and then I will get you a hotel room. I will see that you will never obey me in the future. You are the only one who still wants to get me drunk." Chen Nan shook his head disdainfully and said, "Don't talk about you as Zhang Xiaomi. Even if you have 10 Zhang Xiaomi together, you can't get me drunk. How dare you look down on me? It's just a fact. Asshole, if I don't get you drunk today, I'll write my name backwards." Zhang Xiaomi angrily grabbed the wine glass and said, "If you dare, let's make a bet. If you lose, you will be my man. If you win, now, I'm free to do whatever you want." Although Zhang Xiaomi is a woman, she has a good drinking capacity. She has never met a rival in her life. She really can't get drunk after 1,000 drinks. So, she is very confident in herself. "Who are you afraid of? I don't believe I can't drink like a girl like you." Chen Nan clinked the glass with her and drank it in one gulp. Zhang Xiaomi was also unambiguous. After drinking a glass of wine, he grabbed the bottle and said, "The cup is not pleasant at all. Come on, grab the bottle and drink." Chen Nan was stunned for a moment. This seemed to have a lot of trouble. "Come on, do it." The 2 bottles of wine clinked together with a bang sound, and then they raised their heads and drank. Gulong gulong. The waves were rolling inside the wine bottle, and the water level kept falling. In just a few seconds, Chen Nan drank a bottle of whiskey. When he looked up at Zhang Xiaomi, she also finished the drink, not lagging behind at all. "Is this girl still a woman?" Chen Nan frowned. This time he seemed to have really met his opponents. "Hey, I can't tell you have a good drinking capacity. You don't drink any slower than me." Zhang Xiaomi took another bottle of wine into his hand and looked at Chen Nan and said with some surprise, Chen Nan grabbed a bottle of wine. Stop talking nonsense, come on, I'll get you drunk so I can go home. You can't go back today. Jang Xiaomi said with confidence, because I want to get you drunk, and then I will make you my mother's man and take you home to see my dad. Chen Nan was speechless. Is this girl thinking too much? I haven't even written these horoscopes yet, but I'm actually thinking of meeting my parents. Boom. The two of them clinked their wine bottles together, then raised their heads and drank. At this time, many people around noticed this. Seeing this man and a woman drinking whiskey as if they were drinks, one gulp was a bottle. Everyone was stunned and couldn't believe the facts in front of them. It wouldn't be surprising if a man drinks so freely, but why is this woman so crazy? Could it be that this is the legendary heroine? Snapped. The two of them drank at the same time and threw the bottle on the table. Jang Xiaomi looked at the bar and shouted, 10 more bottles of whiskey. Hearing this, not only the bartender was shocked, but the people around him were even more stunned. The two of them have already drank 2 bottles each. 10 more bottles. In other words, are they still planning to drink 5 bottles? This is whiskey, not red wine, and not beer. For a moment, everyone in the bar put down their glasses and looked at Chen Nan and the others with wide eyes, wondering whether these two people were drunk to death in the end. Or drunk. After 10 bottles of whiskey were brought up, the two of them each grabbed one and touched it. Come on, drink. Both of them shouted boldly, raised their heads and drank heavily, looking a bit like ancient heroes. A bottle, 2 bottles, 3 bottles. After the two of them drank 3 more bottles each, Jang Xiaomi was a little slower for a second or two before finishing the 4th bottle. You really have a problem. 2 red clouds floated on Jang Xiaomi's face. She glanced at the last 2 bottles of wine on the table. She picked up one of them without hesitation and said, Here, keep drinking, I won't believe I can't get you drunk. I advise you to admit defeat as soon as possible, otherwise you will be drunk to death and lose face. Chen Nan picked up the bottle and smiled. Jang Xiaomi touched the bottle directly with her and said, Stop talking nonsense, you are definitely no match for me. Chen Nan shrugged and was about to drink, but at this moment, his cell phone rang, a call from Su Qingqing. Jang Xiaomi came over to take a look and stopped Chen Nan from answering the phone. Don't answer the phone. Why? Jang Xiaomi puffed up her mouth and said, No reason, just because you are mine this afternoon, and you will listen to me whatever I say. But I haven't been at school all afternoon. She is my cousin. She must have called because she was worried about me. My cousin is not allowed to answer the call either. You can only stay with me now. Jang Xiaomi looked arrogant and hesitated for a moment before saying, then just send her a text message to make sure she is safe, and then turn off the phone. Chen Nan had no choice but to send a text message to Su Qingqing and then turned off her phone. The two picked up the wine bottles again. After each drank a bottle, Jang Xiaomi slowed down a little. She glanced at the bar and shouted, Bring me 10 more bottles. As soon as these words came out, there was a burst of exclamation in the bar, and those watching were completely dumbfounded. So far, each of them has finished 7 bottles. 7 bottles. This is simply an astronomical figure. Everyone thought that they would get drunk without finishing the 10 bottles just now, but they didn't expect that not only did they not get drunk after drinking, but they also wanted 10 more bottles. Is this meant to drink spirits as water? But even if you drink it as water, it will fill your stomach. You are really a manly man. Someone exclaimed. Yes, for such a fierce woman, I'm afraid only the guy in front of her can conquer her. Monster, simply inhuman. Quote. Chen Nan and Jang Xiaomi both chose to ignore these people's comments. Because 10 bottles of whiskey have been delivered. Hey, do you want to rest for a while before drinking? Jang Xiaomi was already a little drunk, and her face was flushed. Although Chen Nan also felt something, it was not serious. He smiled and said, Why, it won't work so soon. What the hell, I'm afraid you'll die here drunk. Jang Xiaomi said unconvinced, grabbed a bottle of wine in each hand, and said, Come on, drink 2 bottles together, I haven't met my opponent yet, I don't believe I can't drink you. Chen Nan also picked up 2 bottles, touched them with her, then raised his head and poured them into his mouth. Not long after, Chen Nan placed 2 empty bottles on the table, while Jang Xiaomi had just finished 1 bottle. Admit defeat. Chen Nan smiled and said, Don't hold on, there is no shame in admitting defeat. It will not be good if you drink and cause stomach bleeding. Jang Xiaomi put down an empty bottle, stared at Chen Nan with his head shaking, curled his lips and said, I'm not drunk, you are definitely no match for me. After that, he continued drinking. Chen Nan was speechless. People who drink and say they are not drunk are usually already 7 to 8 points drunk. Jang Xiaomi drank this bottle for 5 minutes, but she still couldn't finish it. The alcohol in her body had already begun to take effect, and her head was dizzy. She put down the bottle in her hand and stared at Chen Nan. After looking at it, he suddenly said, Hey, why do you have 2 heads on your neck? Chen Nan was speechless for a while. You're drunk. I don't. Jang Xiaomi lay on the table, eyes wide open, looking at Chen Nan and said, Little handsome boy, you look like my future husband. Quote. Chen Nan was completely speechless. If it weren't for rolling her eyes for being too girly, Chen Nan would have really wanted to give her a roll of her eyes. Speak. Jang Xiaomi scratched his head and muttered, Why do you look so familiar to me? I really want to pick you up. Not only Chen Nan was speechless, but everyone present was speechless. Don't go crazy drinking, I'll take you home. Chen Nan said helplessly, then paid the bill, picked up Jang Xiaomi and walked outside. The two of them drank for more than half an hour. After leaving the bar, Chen Nan picked up Jang Xiaomi and got on the motorcycle. Since this girl was already drunk, Chen Nan didn't feel comfortable letting her sit in the back, so he had to let her sit on the gas tank while he rode behind her. After finding Jang Xiaomi's keychain, Chen Nan was about to send her home, but at this moment Jang Xiaomi suddenly turned around, eyes wide open, looking at Chen Nan without blinking, looking fascinated. Chen Nan frowned. What are you doing? Jang Xiaomi bulged her mouth, suddenly hugged Chen Nan, and kissed him directly on the lips. Holy shit, what are you doing, Feeling that his mouth was covered by her soft lips, Chen Nan pushed hard, but Jang Xiaomi hugged her too tightly and couldn't push her away. In desperation, Chen Nan opened his mouth and bit hard. Jang Xiaomi screamed in pain and hurriedly let go, but his hands still held Chen Nan tightly without relaxing at all. Chen Nan was very depressed. He was forced to kiss by a woman like this, and the man's self-esteem was severely hit. Jang Xiaomi, you are so shameless. You went crazy and took advantage of me under the influence of alcohol. Chen Nan stared at her with big eyes and small eyes. Jang Xiaomi's face looked harmless, and he blinked. Handsome Guago, your mouth is so sweet. Quote. 3 words popped into Chen Nan's mind, grass mud horse. After holding it in for a while, he cursed angrily, you are so shameless, even more shameless than me. Handsome Guago, I want to kiss you. Jang Xiaomi puffed her mouth and leaned towards Chen again. I'm kissing your sister. Just stay with me. If you want to kiss you, go home and hold the pillow. Chen Nan didn't know how to scold her, so he grabbed her head and twisted it, asking her to say goodbye. He turned to the front and then started the motorcycle. Since he sent Jang Xiaomi back last time, Chen Nan knew the location of her home, so he rushed directly to her door without asking for directions. However, the door to the villa was closed and no one seemed to be home. Handsome Guago, please give me a kiss. As soon as Chen Nan carried her out of the car, Jang Xiaomi put her mouth on his face. Chen Nan tilted his head to one side, not bothering to pay attention to her, and let her kiss her face randomly. He took the keychain and said, Kiss me, which key opened the door? The big and long one, just insert it and twist it. Big and long, insert it. An evil picture emerged in Chen Nan's mind. Jang Xiaomi was lying naked on the bed, spreading his legs as if he was ready to be picked by anyone. He exhaled like blue and whispered softly, Handsome Guo, come here. Shaking his head, Chen Nan hurriedly dispelled these evil thoughts, feeling that he was so and even more shameless than Jang Xiaomi. After walking into the hall, under Jang Xiaomi's vague guidance, Chen Nan found her room. This girl's room didn't look like a girl's boudoir at all, but more like a man's room. If it weren't for the scent that was similar to Jang Xiaomi's, Chen Nan would have really doubted whether he was in the wrong place. You have a good sleep, I'm going home first. Putting her on the bed, Chen Nan turned around and walked towards the door of the room. Jang Xiaomi blinked and suddenly jumped out of bed, jumped forward and hugged Chen Nan from behind. Handsome Guago, don't leave, I want to pick you up. Chen Nan turned around and pulled her back to the bed. You are almost drunk, but you are still so cowardly, please just lie down for me. Jang Xiaomi not only didn't lie down, but hugged Chen Nan. I just want to pick you up. Chen Nan felt helpless. Why is this girl? I told you to lie down, just lie down, what nonsense. Chen Nan said, just about to push Jang Xiaomi to the bed, but this girl suddenly took a step forward, hugged Chen Nan tightly with both arms, and went to there was a collision on the edge of the bed, and the two of them fell directly onto the bed. Handsome Guago, you can't run away. Looking at Chen Nan who had not yet come to his senses, Jang Xiaomi opened his mouth and bit Chen Nan's lips like a hungry wolf pouncing on food. You pervert, I'm doomed, ah! Chen Nan cursed loudly, but before he could finish his sentence, Jang Xiaomi bit his mouth. He never dreamed that this savage girl would be so crazy after drinking, and even have girls after drinking. Grabbing Jang Xiaomi's shoulders, Chen Nan pushed hard twice, but this girl not only held him with both hands, but also wrapped her legs around his waist, just like the eight-clawed octopus, and kept talking. The kiss he asked for was simply more lustful than a starving wolf cub. Holding this soft and hot body in his arms and being kissed by her non-stop, Chen Nan felt that he was almost unable to resist his and a certain place had already swelled rapidly. No, I must never let my junior sister down again. Chen Nan shook his head, suppressing the desire in his heart, and drove Jang Xiaomi's soft and smooth tongue out of his mouth. He stretched out his hand and pushed hard on her chest, feeling soft and elastic. Full. Although the size of the breasts is not large, the feel is definitely top-notch. Jang Xiaomi's upper body was pushed away, but her legs were still wrapped around Chen Nan's waist. She puffed out her mouth and muttered, then she hugged Chen Nan's neck and kissed him all over his face and neck. Chen Nan got goosebumps all over her body, this girl is so fierce. Crazy fool, don't force me. Chen Nan held her head in both hands and glared. Jang Xiaomi blinked, not caring about Chen Nan's words at all, and reached out to pull his clothes. Holy shit, just take it easy. Chen Nan quickly grabbed her hands. If her clothes were torn by her, it wouldn't be easy to tell Su Qingqing if she went back to see them. He couldn't tell her that he was molested by Jang Xiaomi, a pervert. After grabbing her hands, Chen Nan turned her over and pressed her down. He quickly opened her legs around her waist, stood up and ran out. Jang Xiaomi turned over and got up, but the door was locked by Chen Nan with a bang. When she rushed over and opened the door, there was no trace of Chen Nan outside. She had already run away. Am I so unattractive to you? Jang Xiaomi stamped her foot with anger on her face, then she rubbed her head and went back to the bed to lie down. This guy is really drunk. I almost fainted, but nothing happened to him. Chen Nan didn't know that Jang Xiaomi's drunken promiscuity was just an act. After he walked out of the villa, it was already 6 o'clock in the afternoon. He didn't go to school anymore and took a taxi home directly. 4 beauties at home were watching TV in the hall. As soon as Chen Nan walked in, the beauties turned their heads with unkind expressions, stared at him and said in unison, "Tell me the truth, where did you go this afternoon?" Chen Nan was stunned for a moment and said with a guilty conscience, "I went out to play for a while." Su Qingqing stood up angrily, "Then why didn't you answer my call? And you turned off your phone." "Out of battery, Kuya," Su Qingqing said angrily. "Since the battery is out, why did you reply to my text message?" Chen Nan was speechless. If I had known this, I would have stopped sending her text messages and just turned off my phone. Su Qingqing snorted, walked over and grabbed Chen Nan's clothes and smelled it. She suddenly puffed up her pink lips and said angrily, "What Zhu Baji and the others said is indeed right. You actually went to book a room with Jang Xiaomi. I still have her fragrance on me." Open house. Chen Nan was confused when he heard this. When did he open a room with Jang Xiaomi? Although I was almost molested by Jang Xiaomi at her house just now, it was still a little bit worse after all. You don't have a fever, do you? Why are you talking nonsense? Chen Nan said, reaching out and touching Su Qingqing's forehead. Su Qingqing pulled his hand away and said angrily, "Zhu Baji told me personally that you went to open a room with Jang Xiaomi. I have another cousin-in-law. I am so angry." "Why are you angry? Even if my cousin really gets along with Jang Xiaomi, what does it have to do with you?" Lu Tiantian ran over, knocked Su Qingqing aside, and asked, "Cousin, you are doing this in broad daylight, why are you going to rent a room with Jang Xiaomi?" Su Qingqing stuck her butt out and Lu Tiantian pushed her away. Go away, you nymphomaniac. You don't even know what you're doing when you book a room. Just hit the wall. You don't know, Lu Tiantian said unconvinced. What else can we do when we book a room? It must be to sleep. Sleep. Su Qingqing rolled her eyes. I think you are not only a nymphomaniac but also an idiot. You are too stupid. It's not just a day or two since I became stupid. What's so weird about it? Lu Tiantian gave her the middle finger. Su Qingqing was almost speechless. How can you be so stupid and confident? I'm stupid to begin with, what's the shame of saying that? Humph. Lu Tiantian held her head high and looked contemptuous of her. Su Qingqing almost choked to death at these words. You fool. What's wrong with me being a second-rate person? Don't you accept it? If you don't accept it, you can still be a second-rate one. Quote. Seeing the two of them bickering, Su Yixuan and Dongfang Yunfei were used to it, but Chen Nan was shocked. This natural cuteness is really the best, and she actually competed with Su Qingqing to see who is better. Okay, you two are both idiots, stop comparing yourself. Chen Nan said with a smile. Su Qingqing grabbed a banana from the coffee table, peeled it and took a hard bite. You fool, don't be too proud. I haven't settled your debt with you yet. I can't control your affairs with Jang Xiaomi, but if you don't answer my call, I'm not done with you. After saying that, she stared at Chen Nan with an angry face. Chen Nan also knew that he had indeed gone too far in this matter. It was okay not to answer her call, and she even turned off her phone, which was really hurtful. But at that time, she was threatened by Jang Xiaomi, so wasn't she helpless? I was indeed busy at that time and it was not convenient for me to pick him up. I will never be like this again in the future, Chen Nan said a little apologetically. Su Qingqing threw the banana peel into the trash can. In the future. Humph, I will never call you again. Just go on a date with your Jang Xiaomi every day. After finishing speaking, she walked towards the room angrily. Seeing her back fading away, Chen Nan couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. This seemed really angry. He wanted to catch up and say sorry, but when he thought that Su Yixuan and concubine Dongfang Yun were watching, he felt a little embarrassed. After hesitating for a while, he said, Sister Yixuan, how about you help me comfort her? Hit her. You didn't answer her call, so you asked me to go. Su Yixuan shook her head and said, you'd better hurry up and cook, remember to get something delicious, and go and coax her later, I guess everything will be fine. All right. Chen Nan walked into the kitchen helplessly. Cousin, let me help you wash the vegetables. Lu Tiantian followed closely. Washing vegetables and cooking. Although Lu Tiantian was laughing and talking beside her, Chen Nan was not in much mood to listen, and basically answered in a coping style. Seeing that Su Qingqing was angry because of him, he felt very uncomfortable and kept thinking about how to make her happy later. Half an hour later, the meal was ready. The restaurant is filled with aromas, and the air is filled with appetizing smells. Instigated by Su Yixuan's eyes, Chen Nan drank a cup of tea to moisten his throat and walked towards Su Qingqing's room. Dong dong dong. Chen Nan knocked on the door a few times and said, Qingqing, the meal is ready. I will not eat, Su Qingqing said angrily, with a strong smell of vinegar in her tone. Chen Nan was a little depressed. Didn't he just answer the phone? To be so angry. Well, I specially made your favorite braised pork ribs. Whether you are hungry or not, come out and try some. If you don't like it, I will make something else for you. After Su Qingqing was silent for a while, she said angrily, who cares about your broken ribs? I won't eat them. If others had said such words, Chen Nan would have probably ignored them, but when these words came out of Su Qingqing's mouth, he didn't feel angry at all. Instead, he felt that this was quite cute. What can I do if I don't eat? What should I do if I'm starving? Su Qingqing snorted coldly. I just want to lose weight. If you don't eat enough, how can you have the strength to lose weight? Chen Nan smiled and said, besides, you have a perfect figure now. If you lose weight again, it will destroy your sense of perfection. Then a gust of wind will blow you away. Where can I find it? Poochie. Su Qingqing in the room couldn't help laughing. She wiped her wet eyes and said, don't think that if you say nice things, I will let you go. I still have to deal with you not answering my calls. I'm settling a score with you. Okay, Okay, I know I was wrong and let Princess Qingqing do whatever she wants. Su Qingqing covered her mouth, trying not to laugh out loud, and said, then you apologize to me and reflect on your behavior loudly and deeply. Sorry, I was wrong. What did you say? I can't hear you, Su Qingqing asked. Chen Nan cleared her throat, raised her voice and roared, I'm sorry, I was wrong. The three beauties in the hall were all startled by the loud roar. Especially concubine Dongfang Yun, she felt the most depressed. When Su Qingqing was angry, Chen Nan would go to coax her, but when she was angry, Chen Nan never coaxed her, and even often bullied her and made her angry. Livestock. Concubine Dongfang Yun secretly gritted her teeth and cursed Chen Nan for being a fool. At this moment, Su Qingqing laughed proudly in the room. She wiped her eyes and ran over to open the door. She stared at Chen Nan and said, then tell me honestly, are you really having an affair with Zhang? Seeing that her eyes were red and swollen, Chen Nan felt a pain in her heart. Could it be that she was so angry that she cried because she didn't answer the phone? When did this become so fragile? Chen Nan looked at her with some distress, shook his head and said, no, I swear, absolutely not. Seeing Chen Nan speaking sincerely, Su Qingqing was in a good mood. The reason why she was angry was not because Chen Nan didn't answer the phone, but because Chen Nan and Jang Xiaomi were getting along, which made her jealous, sore, painful, and very uncomfortable. Now that the misunderstanding was resolved, she naturally wasn't angry anymore. After dinner, Chen Nan and several beauties sat in the lobby and watched TV. Sister Yixuan, there is something I don't know whether to talk about or not. Chen Nan suddenly said. Not only Su Yixuan, but everyone was stunned and looked at Chen Nan with curiosity, what's going on? Do you still remember that time when we were chased by people from the Qinglong Society on the road? Chen Nan asked with a smile. Since the last time I asked Zhao Dongshan who was behind the scenes, I have forgotten to tell Su Yixuan. Of course I remember, what's wrong? I know who was behind the attempt to kill you that time. Su Yixuan said excitedly, who is it? Thank you Hushan. Chen Nan said 3 words lightly, but Su Yixuan shook his head and denied, no way, it absolutely can't be him. Uncle Xie has been in the company for 30 years. When my father first established the company, he just after so many years of making great contributions to the company, how could he want to kill me? Chen Nan shrugged and said, whether you believe it or not, he is the mastermind behind it. After Su Yixuan was silent for a while, she looked at Chen Nan and said, it's not that I don't believe what you say, but Uncle Xie is one of the people I trust most, and I don't think he will do anything bad to me. Probably not. Chen Nan smiled and shook his head. So, you are not sure yourself, are you? Actually, I don't expect you to completely believe what I say. I just hope that you will be more discerning and be wary of this person. It will save you money. Then he will be tricked. Looking at Chen Nan, Su Yixuan hesitated and said, you said he was the mastermind behind the scenes. Do you have any evidence? No, but my information is absolutely reliable. Su Yixuan nodded, okay, I will pay more attention to him. Chen Nan smiled and said nothing. He knew very well that Su Yixuan obviously didn't believe what he said, but Chen Nan could see it. After all, the other party was a veteran of the company for years, and he and Su Yixuan had only known each other for days. What capital did he have? Compare with others. Anyway, just be careful. After all, it's important to be on guard against others. Chen Nan said with a smile, then got up and returned to his room. After working all day, Chen Nan was very tired. After turning on the computer, she found a girl to have girls with to relax. Beauty, do you have a husband? There is. Do you mind changing it? Mind. Do you mind having one more? Die, pervert. When Chen Nan was chatting happily, the door was pushed open, and Lu Tiantian walked in with a frustrated face. Chen Nan was so frightened that Chen Nan quickly closed the chat window and sat upright. Cousin, Lu Tiantian's sticky voice dragged on with a long tail. Chen Nan shivered all over, can you stop being so whiny? Lu Tiantian ran over, grabbed Chen Nan's arm and shook it, her voice became even louder, cousin, brother Nan. Chen Nan was speechless for a while, what on earth do you want to do? I heard clearly that you have nothing to do with Jang Xiaomi. Is this true? Yes, Chen Nan nodded. Lu Tiantian changed from her previous pitiful demeanor and leaned forward with a smile, kissing Chen Nan on the face. So, as long as I lose weight in breasts, I still have a chance to pursue you. Forced to be kissed by a woman again. Chen Nan felt very depressed and nodded without thinking. Lu Tiantian felt disappointed. Her cousin did not stop her from losing weight. This showed that her cousin really liked women with small breasts. Jang Xiaomi's breasts were so small, so he was indeed a strong competitor. To slim down my breasts, I must severely slim down my breasts to the point where they are even smaller than Jang Xiaomi. Lu Tiantian encouraged herself secretly in her heart, then said goodbye to Chen Nan, ran back to the room to pester Su Qingqing, and asked her to help look up information on breast reduction, which made Su Qingqing go crazy and almost collapse. Ningjiang Central Hospital, inside a ward. Xiao Zhanren was lying on the bed with a plaster on his left hand, unable to move at all. Next to Xiao Zhanren, there is a young man sitting in his mid-20s. His face looks somewhat similar to Xiao Zhanren. His body is very strong and he is a typical muscular man. This is Xiao Zhanren's brother, Xiao Zhanyi. Logically speaking, when it comes to benevolence and righteousness, benevolence comes first and righteousness comes last, but the names of these two brothers are reversed. Looking at his younger brother on the bed, with several missing teeth, a bruised nose and swollen face, and a broken hand, Xiao Zhanyi seemed to have two balls of anger burning in his eyes. He said, "What is the origin of this Chen Nan?" Xiao Zhanren shook his head, "I don't know. Anyway, he has very high martial arts skills. It is said that Zhao Ming also fell into his hands." Xiao Zhanyi slapped his palm on the edge of the bed and said angrily, "No matter how good his martial arts skills are, if he dares to hit my Xiao Zhanyi brother, I will have to maim him." Xiao Zhanren's face was suddenly filled with surprise. He was very clear about his brother's strength. With the strength of a 6th-degree black belt in karate, he is an absolute master. No matter how good Chen Nan's martial arts skills are, he will probably only be knocked away with one punch, right? "Brother, he made me lose so much face. If we just cripple him, wouldn't it be too easy on him?" Xiao Zhanyi glanced at him. "What do you mean? Let's block him at the school gate, beat him down in front of all the students, and make him kneel down to admit his mistake and sing, 'Conquer.' Only in this way can I have the face to hang out in school in the future." Xiao Zhanren said coldly. Xiao Zhanyi nodded and said, "Okay, tomorrow morning, I will take the students in my gym with me and let them see how I beat Chen Nan to the ground. Not only will I be able to take revenge, but I will also be able to let more people see the power of karate, which is equivalent to advertising my gym, and there will be more and more students." "Brother, you are so right. I will go with you tomorrow. I will knock out his teeth with my own hands and let him taste the feeling of not being able to eat. I also want to let Huo Xinya know that Chen Nan and I'm just a piece of shit. Okay, let's go cripple him early tomorrow morning." Chen Nan didn't know about the Xiao brothers' conspiracy. After sending Lu Tiantian away, he the girl on QQ for a while, then took a shower and fell asleep on the bed. That night, Chen Nan dreamed again. He dreamed of Huo Xinya, helping him with English tutoring in the classroom. Later, for some reason, he kissed Huo Xinya on the lips, then took off her clothes, and the two of them had girls in the classroom. Something inappropriate happened, and then, Chen Nan woke up in the morning and found that her vagina was wet. A crime. There was a fishy smell in the room. Chen Nan took off the essence stain, threw it on the ground, walked into the bathroom, took a shower, and then put on a clean pair. According to Chen Nan's previous habit, he originally liked to sleep naked. However, since he came to Ningjiang City and became involved with women, he often had girls at night, and the sheets got wet every time. In order to wash the sheets less often, Chen Nan had to change her habit of sleeping naked and wear a trousers to sleep. With a long sigh, Chen Nan picked up the on the ground and was about to wash it, but at this moment, boom, there was a loud noise, and someone knocked open the door. Lu Tiantian ran in with excitement on her face. "Cousin, hurry up and make breakfast." Before she finished the last word, meal, Lu Tiantian saw Chen Nan's wet-stained vagina, and immediately exclaimed, "Cousin, have you wet the bed again?" Chen Nan's head is full of black lines. "You go out first, I'll be right away." Lu Tiantian scratched her head, wondering why her cousin always wet the bed. She was about to go out, but at this moment, she suddenly felt something was wrong with the smell in the room. She shrugged her nose and asked, why is there such a fishy smell in your room? It smells terrible. Chen Nan subconsciously glanced at his hand. He had emitted so many seeds, how could there be no fishy smell? Oh, that's it. I just sprayed perfume in the room. Chen Nan said. Perfume. Lu Tiantian was immediately shocked. What perfume smells so bad? This isn't perfume at all, it's clearly just smelly water. Chen Nan felt helpless. The smell was really not good. I only found out after spraying it. It turns out that this perfume has expired. You can go out first. I will open the window and I will come back later. Okay then, I'll go first. Lu Tiantian pinched her little nose and ran out as if she felt a little uncomfortable. But as soon as she reached the door, she stopped again. Don't worry, cousin, I will keep your bedwetting a secret and won't tell you. Out. Bedwetting. Chen Nan felt very depressed, but it was hard to explain, so he could only nod his head resignedly. If you wet the bed, just wet the bed. You can't tell her that you up to Huo Shinya by doing it yourself, right? After finishing breakfast, Chen Nan and the two beauties went out together. Just like before, Su Qingqing jumped on Chen Nan's back as soon as she left the house. Chen Nan was already used to this and was too lazy to scold her. The three of them walked towards the school talking and laughing. However, when he arrived outside the school gate, Chen Nan frowned. He saw an acquaintance, Xiao Zhanren. At this moment, this fool comrade was standing with more than 20 people in karate uniforms, with his left hand in a plaster hanging on his chest. Next to him, stood a young man with a height of 1.9 meters, with a strong body. The muscles all over his body look powerful and tough. This beast must be trying to bully his classmates again. Su Qingqing clenched her fists and said angrily. Whatever, cousin, let's go over and take a look. With a smile on her face, Lu Tiantian pulled Chen Nan and walked toward the crowd. Everyone who was still chatting and spanking suddenly turned cold when they saw Chen Nan coming, pretending to be fierce and cold. More than 20 people with more than 40 eyes stared at him fiercely. Chen Nan. They originally came to take revenge with Xiao Zhanren, but now that they saw two beauties accompanying Chen Nan, the hostility in their hearts suddenly became stronger. No one else can pick up a beautiful woman, but this fool can pick up two of them together. Is he still a human being? What a beast. I said, little fool, if you don't go to the hospital and lie down, why are you waiting outside the school gate so early in the morning? In the cold eyes of everyone, Chen Nan walked over with a smile. Chen Nan, I'm a fool. Xiao Zhanren cursed, but he subconsciously took 2 steps back, hid behind Xiao Zhanyi, pointed at Chen Nan and said, brother, this is such a bad day. Don't worry, brother is here, you don't have to be afraid of him. Patting Xiao Zhanren on the shoulder, Xiao Zhanyi took 2 steps forward and asked, are you Chen Nan? What's up? Chen Nan was carrying Su Qingqing on his back and responded calmly, not putting Xiao Zhanyi at ease at all. Seeing that the other party didn't take him seriously at all, Xiao Zhanyi's eyes flashed with a trace of viciousness. The guy in front of him is obviously more arrogant than he thought. Doesn't he know that he will be brutally tortured if he stays for a while? I heard your. Chen Nan waved his hand, it's just a compliment from friends in the world, it's not worth mentioning. Xiao Zhanyi was speechless for a long time. Could this guy be thicker-skinned? I'll let you be arrogant, and I'll be happy for you for a while. Xiao Zhanyi sneered in his heart, glanced at Chen Nan and said, I heard that you are good at martial arts. Do you dare to compete with me? Do you want to be beaten? Chen Nan asked. You. Xiao Zhanyi was so angry that he turned pale and was speechless for a while. He didn't think he could beat Chen Nan. After all, when facing an opponent, there is still a person on his back, and he is completely unprepared. Can such an idiot be a master? It's almost silly. The karate students next to him also had angry faces. This guy is on the verge of death, yet he still dares to be so arrogant. Xiao Zhanyi snorted coldly and said, what's the use of talking? If you have the guts, just accept my challenge. Of course I have the guts, why don't you ask your wife to try it? Chen Nan's calm words almost made the students present laugh out loud, but because of their dignity, they did not dare to laugh out loud. Su Qingqing, who was on the back, pinched him gently and whispered, you fool. This guy seems to be here to cause trouble for you. Do you want me to come down? Chen Nan shook his head and smiled, it's okay, they're just a few thieves. Beating them isn't enough for me to warm up. Being humiliated by Chen Nan in public, Xiao Zhanyi's face turned livid, his fists were clenched tightly, and the anger in his heart was already raging. The students around him were all angry when they saw Chen Nan dare to humiliate the idol in their hearts. They were looking forward to Xiao Zhanyi showing off his power and beating up this ignorant boy. For a time, the atmosphere at the scene was extremely heated. More and more people gathered around, and all the students cheered for Xiao Zhanyi. At this moment, they seemed to have seen Chen Nan, who was beaten with a bruised nose and face, kneeling on the ground and screaming for mercy, and their hearts were filled with endless yearning. Beat him hard, beat him to death. Change. At dawn, Bai Ning sat up on the dragon bed in Sinning Palace. Behind him, a woman with a somewhat numb look lowered her head and helped him tie up his hair, then put on his palace robe and tied his belt. Do you remember what the governor said yesterday? The woman's figure froze, and after tying the belt with 8 jade beads, she nodded. Remember, as long as you don't take the throne of Yer, everything is up to you. Our family won't fight with a child for things. Bai Ning sat on the dressing table in front of the window and looked at the figure combing his hair in the bronze mirror. There was not much anger on Zheng Wan's face. The humiliating blow she suffered last night was probably still there. It would be difficult in her lifetime to forget it. The contrast brought by her status was still unacceptable to anyone. Her pretty face was tense, a lot more haggard than usual. Bai Ning tilted his head, staring at the bronze mirror with emotionless eyes. We are just a eunuch, and we can't give you any substantial submission, but don't jump up and down behind your back, or you will know, the eunuch in this palace likes to torture people. There are many ways to do it. If it doesn't work, the governor can make you strip naked and run around Bianliang. However, in that case, you will have no shame in continuing to live, right? Bar. Behind him, the figure holding a jade comb looked at Bai Ning hatefully, without saying a word, and continued to comb his hair. In fact, Zheng Wan naturally hated the person in front of her, but she had no other choice now. What she said when the ministers agreed on the new emperor's enthronement, she vowed to let Zhao Yi ascend the throne, and now he has to compromise in front of a eunuch to keep his son's throne. Such bitterness made her think of Shang Yu, who also supported his son in his rise to power, but unfortunately he was no longer there. Okay, it's time to go to court. Go wash up early. Bai Ning straightened his palace crown, turned around and left this dull room. The 4th watch had passed, the fish belly white gradually revealed its halo in the east, and a morning was coming. Walking to the corridor, the old eunuch at the far end came quickly with his maids and attendants, and suddenly knelt down in front of Bai Ning. For a moment, he kowtowed to the ground, and the voice came out of Cao Junshan's mouth, I have seen 9,000 years. 9,000 years old. Bai Ning frowned in surprise. Cao Junshan raised a flattering smile and said, some ignorant people were listening to the wall last night. They heard what the governor said, and the servant felt that the title of governor was more than reasonable. Tisk, tisk, the name 9,000 years old is really majestic. Looking at the old face that was as wrinkled as a bun, Bai Ning walked away with a puff of sleeves. Be careful if you listen to things you shouldn't. You will be harmed later, so be a good boy. Yes. Yes. Cao Junshan followed closely with a smile still on his face. The figure in front suddenly stopped and lowered his eyes. How many people know about it? Everything that needs to be known is known. The old eunuch felt that the admiral seemed a little unhappy, and his voice gradually became weaker. Bang! The figure in front of him suddenly turned around, raised his steps and kicked Cao Junshan in the abdomen. With a dull sound, in the quiet morning, the kicked figure rose up and fell to the ground with an, ouch, sound like a big glyph. Cough. The body lying on the ground stretched out and coughed twice. Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth and dripped on the ground. Cao Junshan didn't even wipe the blood, and quickly got up and knelt in front of Bai Ning. He slapped his face with one hand and said, Supervisor. The governor, it's the slave's fault, and the slave's supervision is not good. The slave originally thought that these words were beneficial to the governor. After all. It's very majestic after all, isn't it? Bai Ning suddenly raised his leg and kicked the opponent's shoulder. This kick was not very powerful, but it frightened Cao Junshan so much that he shrank his head and closed his eyes. Do you know, that was used by the governor to warn Zheng Wan, and you guys just used it to show off. You have just lived a peaceful life for a few days, and you already want to be majestic. Where is the cleverness you used to have? Bai Ning said to him in a deep voice, and tapped the other person's forehead with his fingers through the air. Get up and go up. After hearing this, Cao Junchun got up from the ground as if he had been granted amnesty. The palace robe on his body was already dirty, so he had to ask for instructions and go back to change clothes. But the figure in front didn't say anything, so he had to bite the bullet and follow behind. Before leaving Sinning Palace, I saw the nanny from the palace holding the little emperor, followed by a group of guards and maids coming towards this side. When I saw Bai Ning, the nanny knelt down on the ground with the emperor in her arms to say hello. Get up. Bai Ning glanced at her and walked forward. Uncle, save, save. The moment Bai Ning passed by, Zhao Yi in the woman's arms suddenly stretched out his arms and shouted in a sweet voice. Although the words were unclear, the moving figure stopped. Quote. How long did it take for you to learn to speak? The nanny quickly lowered her head and said, reporting to the governor, about 10 days ago, Your Majesty suddenly became able to speak some simple words. To the east, the golden glow from the clouds shone on Bai Ning's face. His indifferent expression melted away and he smiled. He walked over and took the little emperor out of the woman's arms. Okay, Yer can talk now, which means he's grown up a bit. Bai Ning hugged the little emperor for a while, then put him down and held him in his hand. He walked towards the Kui Gong Hall and said to the attendants behind him. Instruction. Your Majesty does not need to pay greetings to her mother today. Our family will take him to court. He said this, and the people behind him did not dare to say anything nonsense. They had no choice but to watch the Dongcheng Admiral and Chief of Ceremonies leave with the little emperor. When the blue and dark lights alternated, the civil and military personnel of the previous court had probably rested temporarily in the side hall of Kui Gong Hall, waiting for the summons from the previous court. At this time, several people were stamping their feet and cursing in the hall. Too presumptuous. How dare Bai Ning claim to be 9,000 years old, and stay overnight in Sinning Palace, simply. The old man stamped his feet and clenched his fists. Several civil servants belonging to the old man's side started talking noisily, and most of their words were full of indignation. There were not many who were really insulting. They dared to say this now because they saw that there were no eunuchs or eunuchs in the side hall. With the guards present, he felt much bolder to speak. In the corner of the side hall, Qin Wei blew tea foam and sat there expressionlessly, keeping a distance from the chaotic figures over there, and then made some ideas in his mind. Thinking of this, the corner of his mouth curled up slightly, and he raised the teacup to block it. Upon, all officials are here to meet you. The fly whisk was flicked in the hands of the noisy eunuch, and he stood outside the palace door and made a loud noise. In the side hall, the civil and military officials arranged their appearance and stood in 2 rows before entering the Kui Gong Hall. On the side of the long court, Bai Ning slowly walked over holding the little emperor's figure, and let him go up in front of the stone steps. Not long after, Queen Mother Zheng Wan also came in from the other side, supported by the palace maid. He sat down next to the dragon chair. Bai Ning didn't care about the children who were still struggling with the dragon chair. He lifted up his robe and sat on the first seat on the right. He glanced at the officials in the palace and made an opening statement. The governor came back from the south and saw when I arrived in the wealthy areas in the south of the Yangtze River, I saw many good officials who could take on a role. The messy things in the past were gradually sorted out. Our family is very satisfied with your ability to understand current affairs. Sir Admiral, I have my own intention. A figure walked out of the queue of civil servants on the left. Bai Ning raised his eyes and looked at that person's face. It was Qin Wei. What are you playing? I would like to report to the Admiral, Your Majesty, and the Queen Mother that I would like to inform you that Tan Ji, the censor, Sun Chaozhong, the Minister of Civil Affairs, and Wang Kui, the Minister, have secretly suggested that the Admiral spend the night in Sinning Palace to ruin the reputation of the Queen Mother. Qin Wei looked businesslike. Expression, said seriously. In the queue, the old man who had been scolding angrily in the side hall pointed at the figure standing in the hall with trembling fingers. You are presumptuous. Presumptuous. Bai Ning moved his lips, but before his voice came out, in the long court, the woman behind the bead curtain shouted loudly and stood up from the phoenix chair, Sun Shengshu, I think you are so presumptuous that you are talking about me in the imperial city. If Qin Aiqing hadn't spoken out frankly about my private matters, what you didn't do would have been confused by what you said. Stepping out, he looked at the woman in the long court with a trembling body, and then at Bai Ning, who was sitting on the chair with his eyes closed. He lowered his head and knelt down slowly, and gently pressed his wrinkled forehead against floor. I am 63 this year. As I get older, I often have auditory hallucinations. I think I have misjudged this matter. But the words have been spoken and the crime has been committed. I still want to say that the Queen Mother is still young. I will inevitably think of the late Emperor at night, and have trouble sleeping alone, but the royal majesty cannot be abolished. Even if the momentary grievance is over, the stain of that time cannot be erased. Bai Ning opened his eyes and narrowed his eyes. I miss you because you are old, so I don't want to do anything. 9,000 years old, when all the civil and military officials in the court are blind or deaf. Bai Ning, you are a eunuch, a slave in the palace, what do you want to do when you are sitting in the court? Dongcheng kills people Ruma, the eunuchs are domineering and do good things. Even though you did a lot of things when the Jurchens went south, you know very well what you did there in the Taiyuan battle. The cause of the late emperor's death is unknown. Kai Shang and Tong Privy Council, they were killed one after another. Do you dare to say that you didn't stir up trouble here? With a bang, the python chair fell backwards. Bai Ning stood up suddenly, his eyes flashing with murderous intent. Seriously, we don't dare to kill you. The old man stood up from the ground and straightened his back. I'm standing here, come and kill me. There was a sudden silence in the main hall. Almost everyone knew who Bai Ning was and what he had done. Most of them also knew that he worked for the Wu dynasty. But if they really wanted to treat a pure eunuch as a normal person, they had something in their hearts. He resisted, but at this time, the old man Sun Chaozhong tore the scars off the opponent's body in front of everyone. All the civil and military officials could only be shocked and worried. No one in the palace dared to gasp loudly. Bai Ning looked at the other person's face with sprouting hair, suddenly smiled, and asked someone to pull up the chair. In the long court, Zheng Wan squeezed the cold sweat in her hands, took a deep breath, and said appropriately, Sun Aiqing, it is a fact that you have slandered my reputation with your words, but because you are old and dim, it would seem that you are guilty of this. Gong is too mean, so how about you go home and have a good rest to take care of yourself? Old minister, thank you, Queen Mother. Sun Chaozhong bowed his hands to thank him. Then a close servant came and took the official hat off his head. The old man looked at the hat, sighed, turned around and left towards the palace door. Zheng Wan turned her head and looked at Bai Ning, smiled and said, Admiral, do you think this is appropriate? Well, that's it. Bai Ning nodded. Sanchao. After the sky came up, the court discussion discussed some more and finally dispersed. Bai Ning slowly walked out of the Kuigong Hall and looked at the crowds of people leaving the palace. Behind him, Cao Junchun came over and said, Master, do you want to be a slave? Kill them. The sun shone on Bai Ning's face. He looked in the direction of the crowd. His cold eyes combined with his smile looked a little strange. No need. I killed an old man in his early years. He was a very nice old man. When his family members were beheaded, our family was in jail. The old man's grandson was still very young, just a little taller than His Majesty. When the knife was about to cut off his neck, he asked his grandma in fear if he could it hurts. So, let's forget it. It's normal for an old man to have a stubborn temper, and there are a lot of things he can't stand. Besides, he is old and won't live for a few years. It doesn't matter whether he is killed or not. When Bai Ning saw that the figures over there were almost gone, he turned back and took a breath of air. Since Zhao Ji's death, I have always felt that there is resentment everywhere in the palace and there is no room for people to sit there. Immediately, under Cao Junchun's puzzled eyes, he led the accompanying guards towards the palace gate. The skylight rose to a certain height, and the cicadas began to chirp indiscriminately. The cool air gradually increased in temperature, making it a little boring. Between the flower beds, bees were buzzing around. In an independent courtyard in Bai Mansion, Bai Yi wiped the sweat from his head. When he raised his head, he looked at the potted plants on the ground and said to the figure leaning leisurely on the wall on the other side. Another pot is missing, so don't come here again if nothing happens. Sun stopped spitting out a piece of grass root and said with a smile, I, old son, thought the flower was pretty, so I took it and gave it to your sister. What I think is pretty should be worthy of a pretty person like you." The figure digging the trench ignored him, as if he couldn't find anything to say. "Hey. You said, what would you think if my old son married your sister?" Sun Zai suddenly jumped over and lay on the fence outside the flower garden, leaning his head and saying to the honest man. The expression is quite serious. Bai Yi stopped the hoe and wiped his sweat with a towel. "I said, Lao Sun, if my sister wants to get married, she will get married naturally. You came here to ask me, but I don't want to marry you. Go ahead, you want to get married. If you want to marry her, just ask yourself and don't bother me." What a piece of wood. Sun no longer threw a piece of sawdust at him and turned around to leave. As he walked through the forest path in the garden, he saw a woman walking towards him with 2 maids. The man with something on his mind looked at the figure getting closer and closer, and scratched his cheeks anxiously. After a moment, he made up his mind and hurried forward. Before the other party could speak, he said first, "That I, old son, I want to ask you something." "Ah, what's the matter?" Bai Di looked at the person who came suddenly in confusion. "It's a very important thing, very important." Sun Ji no longer reached out and touched around on his body, and finally took out a jade pendant from his chest. "Hand it to the woman. I have always carried it with me. I just wanted to ask if you would marry me." The breeze blew through the forest, golden light swayed on the leaves, and the green brick paved path reflected uneasy figures. When he said those words in excitement, Sun Zai was a little embarrassed. I'm a little anxious, Miss Bai, don't blame me." The thin and dark figure stammered, his whole body was trembling. "Just now, everything I said is true, it's just a little abrupt." He was in a hurry to explain and seemed to be talking repeatedly. On the other side, Bai Di blinked her eyes and took a long time to react. Her originally smiling face suddenly burned up, and she opened her mouth slightly and didn't say anything. Character. The few maids behind him were also frightened by the sudden marriage proposal. After all, in these days, most of them are matchmakers who come here to go on a blind date. If they are suitable, they will marry each other. After that, they will write a letter of appointment and give a betrothal gift, and choose a good date. There are a lot of things waiting for auspicious days, but if a man suddenly bursts out like this and proposes to a woman, anyone would be shocked. Even if you are familiar with each other, it won't work. I know it's inappropriate to say these things so suddenly. The man, whose fingers couldn't help but grasp his cheek, stamped his feet anxiously on the spot. His originally fearless character could not be met with the situation in front of him. The person became trembling and frightened. Spots of light fell on the ground, people, and plain faces. Bai Di couldn't help but feel a sore nose. The moment her eyes turned red, tears shone in the sunlight and fell down, gathering on her chin along her cheeks. Just like that, he suddenly started crying. Don't cry, don't cry." Sun Zaixiang walked back and forth in front of her at a loss. When he saw Li Hua's rainy face, he waved his hands quickly. Don't cry, don't cry. I don't want to make you cry, so don't cry when I leave. It won't look good if you end up crying. I know I'm not good looking, and I'm not lovable with my dark appearance, and I'm not worthy of you. But after I've been with you day and night, I like you in my heart, and I feel like you good." The steps slowly retreated, and Sun Zaizi's figure retreated into the shadow of the tree, and slowly turned around. "Sometimes, I feel irritable. As long as I see you, say a few words to you, and see you smiling, I can't say anything. I'm so happy, it's my fault for making you cry. I'm leaving now, don't cry." Sun Zaizi's voice was choked with sobs, as if he was trying hard to suppress his emotions. He looked back again, then took steps to leave on the other side. "Stop, come back," a female voice suddenly sounded on the forest path. Over there, the walking figure suddenly froze, stopped, turned around without hesitation, and saw Bai Di wiping her tears. She said, "Is what you just said true?" Which sentence?" Sun Zoizi's heart almost jumped out of his chest, and he swallowed. "I said a lot. I can't remember it." "The first sentence." Bai Di sniffed, and the corners of her mouth curved slightly. "Are you willing to marry me?" Sun Ji hesitated and spoke out. The corners of the woman's mouth curled up, a smile appeared, and she nodded, with a soft voice, I am willing. What? Originally there was another sentence at the end, is this the sentence? He hadn't said it yet, but when he heard the other party's sudden answer, Sun's eye stopped instantly and froze in place, his mouth wide open and unable to utter a single syllable. Then, the stiff face exploded in an instant. Quote. Ah! Sun Zanjiang's expression turned into ecstasy in an instant. He jumped up on the spot, covered his face and shouted, she agreed. I got a wife, ha ha. Ha ha ha, my grandson is so happy. Sun Ji stopped running crazily in the forest, jumped onto a nearby tree, and moved back and forth. The madness of joy spread throughout the forest and even the entire Bai mansion. In the forest, the woman on the path looked at his figure jumping up and down, and laughed through tears, not serious. Inadvertently, she saw her brother's figure standing there at the end of the path she had come from before, looking over, and then walked away. Younger brother. His smile slowly faded, and he whispered a few words to the maid beside him, then chased in the direction Bai Ning left. The door to the study room opened, and the sunlight poured in. Footsteps pushed people's shadows into the room. Bai Ning sat quietly behind the desk. Xiao Chenzi carefully brought the teacup and just put it down. Bai Di's figure also walked in at the door. Xiao Chenzi. You go down first. The young eunuch glanced at the admiral over there, then bowed and exited, closing the door behind him. A voice rang out from the figure behind the desk. Quote. Do you really want to marry him? He has nothing, he is just a wanderer, and he doesn't even open his eyes when choosing someone. Bai Ning frowned and raised his eyes. Bai Di squeezed the handkerchief and lowered her head. In recent years, my sister has also enjoyed blessings and met more people. But brother, you also know that my sister used to be a maid who worked for other people, and she didn't ask for much. No longer is this person actually quite good, he is honest and reliable, if he really likes me, it is not impossible to marry him. Quote. I naturally know what kind of person he is, otherwise I wouldn't have entrusted him with the safety of my family. It's just that marriage matters cannot be decided in one sentence. Didn't my brother ask my sister to find someone to marry? She thought he was good, so she married him. On the wooden chair, Bai Ning's face was livid, and he tapped his fingers on the armrest unconsciously. He looked at Bai Di for a long time before he stopped tapping his fingers. He took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. Since sister wants to, if you want to marry grandson, just go ahead and marry him. The matter has been settled. You can discuss it yourself on how to set the date, but... He paused and then said, don't let son know that you, actually don't like him. Brother. How do you know? Bai Di pursed her lips, feeling a little uneasy. But then, tears seeped into her eyes, blurring her vision, and she shook her head. Ever since the eldest brother left, the second brother has been an honest person. He can't do anything to help his younger brother, and he can't do anything, so my sister just wants to. I want to at least find a helper with strong martial arts skills for my brother. Bai Ning stood up, looked at the body of his sister, and nodded in silence. The figure standing over there wiped away his tears, smiled, turned and left the study. Bai Ning walked out of the cool room and stood in the sunshine. Looking at the leaving figure, he suddenly felt an indescribable feeling in his heart. Quote. Pretending. A small female voice came from the corridor. Looking back, she didn't know when Xiao Linglong came over. She leaned against a pillar and said with a bit of resentment in her voice, I just don't want to get married. It would be better to stay in the house if I marry son. Is that nice to say? Don't talk to her like that. You are still young and don't understand the adult world. Bai Ning walked over and touched her head, then turned and entered the study again. Chapter 91. Feng Qingchen stood there in a daze, entering a strange circle. I just felt that Ji Wuxian was still blaming him and still hadn't forgiven him. But no one could forgive this kind of thing. Although she didn't want to pursue it, she didn't want to forgive him, let alone see him again. There are so many people in this world, and she is not stupid. After suffering a loss once, do you want to make up for it a second time? Could it be that he really thought that he was the only one in the entire fairy world? Sighing, she actually didn't want to cause this situation today. It's not a good idea to get together and part ways easily. You betrayed me once, and we will never have any contact with each other forever. Go away and don't come back again. Ji Wuxian said calmly with his back to Feng Qingchen. No, you still have me in your heart. Feng Qingchen shouted hysterically at Ji Wuxian. He couldn't stand Ji Wuxian's indifference towards him. This time, Ji Wuxian ignored him and walked directly forward. Ji Wuyan snorted coldly and followed him directly. Feng Qingchen stretched out his hand to catch her, but he fell to the ground weakly. He suddenly felt a heavy blow on his chest, and felt a sweet taste in his mouth that he couldn't hold back at all. Puff! A mouthful of red blood immediately stained the skirt of his clothes. Senior brother. Bai Hua suddenly became anxious. Feng Qingchen's aura was disordered, and the immortal power in his body was clashing. This was obviously a rhythm that was about to go crazy. But his eyes were still looking at the woman who left without mercy, with regret in his eyes. Bai Hua sighed. If he was deeply affectionate, why would he be so cruel as to hurt her? He just couldn't understand it. Maybe this was the power of Taisheng Wangqing. Bai Hua smiled self-deprecatingly and finally knocked Feng Qingchen unconscious. If this continues, I'm afraid a good immortal will turn into a fallen immortal. Wu Shen. Ji Wuyan looked at Ji Wuxian's back hesitantly and couldn't help but call out. Ji Wuxian stopped. In fact, she was more willing to face Feng Qingchen than face Ji Wuyan. She doesn't have any feelings about the latter, so she doesn't have to worry too much. But the former is really concerned and worried about her, but she can't find the original feeling again, nor can she understand the original mood. Let alone the worry in Ji Wuyan's eyes and the complexity in her heart. Brother, don't come here again. Ji Wuxian is not a complete fool. Although some of today's episodes did not affect her, they were enough for her to see something. Even if I didn't react at the time, I gradually discovered other flavors later. Space is a treasure, but it also brings her trouble. Today, no one is afraid of being addicted, but what about later? Although the Xuanyuan family won't publicize it in order to obtain the treasure, they will get angry if the time comes. What if many of the top forces in the immortal world are united to deal with Haodu? If many people know the secret of space by then, it will definitely not be safe around her. Ji Wuxian didn't want to implicate Ji Wuyan, let alone the entire demon clan. Even the demon clan is not such a stable existence. Of course she also knows that people who are not from my race must have different minds. Although demons are also human beings, they are somewhat different from these immortals. How could it be possible to monopolize a state without attracting covetous attention? If the demons intervene at that time, there would be no need for excuses. Ji Wuyan naturally didn't understand what she meant, but in the end he still couldn't say a harsh word. Brother, I have the strength to protect myself. You will understand in the future. Ji Wuxian didn't want to let Ji Wuyan feel cold, so he could only throw away a vague reason. She knew that as long as she didn't want to say anything, Ji Wuyan wouldn't ask any more questions. When she returned to Mini Dongwa Mountain, Ji Wuxian was still a little confused. She actually didn't know how to let Ji Wuyan leave. Her last words made her almost burst into tears. If you are tired, the Demon Clan Gate welcomes you back at any time. Lying on the bed, Ji Wuxian exhaled, feeling that he was not interested in anything and felt so boring. He raised his hand and glanced at the red line on his ring finger, feeling inexplicably lost. Although Haodu was very attentive to himself, Ji Wuxian always felt that it was not pure enough. In fact, they are not pure people. After all, she initially thought that Hoyun's strength could be used as a backer. But after today, Ji Wuxian felt very tired. There are so many high-level immortals, and their addiction is so high-profile. Although on the one hand, they put her behind him and she has a backer, they also push her to the people on the other side. I always felt like I was blinded by the tenderness at that time, and I gradually felt a little irritable in my heart. Thinking of the words and deeds in the cloud, the warmth between his eyebrows, I couldn't help but feel a little doubtful in my heart. She really didn't want to think that way, but after seeing Feng Qingchen, the irritable feeling in her heart became more and more intense. Suddenly I miss Li Badian so much. If he were here, even if he just complained about me, it would be better than being dry and depressed like this. Thinking of this, Ji Wuxian touched his chest, feeling empty again. It was obvious that today was the grand ceremony, and she had already decided to keep her addiction in her heart. Why was it so empty now? She was the only one in the entire Dongwa Mountain. Ji Wuxian looked around. All the arrangements were completely tailored for her, and there was nothing that made her feel uncomfortable. But just because of this, I always feel uncomfortable. In a flash, he simply returned to space. Feeling her coming in, Zhao King happily surrounded Ji Wuxian. Sitting next to the hot spring, I saw a black scale lying in the grass. Reaching out to pick up the scales, the cold scales had lost their luster. Why is the master unhappy? I don't know either. I feel very confused. I always feel as if everyone has ill intentions towards me. Ji Wuxian didn't know if he was suffering from persecution delusion. In fact, it was quite good at first, but after meeting Feng Qingqian, this feeling arose spontaneously, and the whole person was in an extremely uneasy state. Because after experiencing a betrayal, Ji Wuxian was particularly sensitive in this regard, and he couldn't tolerate the slightest bit of sand in his eyes when it came to feelings. Once you have doubts in your mind, they will continue to be amplified. Zhao King definitely didn't understand this, so she didn't know what to say, so she could only quietly nestle beside Ji Wuxian. At this time, Li Badian's advantage comes to light. At least Li Badian can still analyze it for herself. Even if she talks nonsense, she will feel much better. Fortunately, after saying this, Ji Wuxian's irritability subsided a bit. Now I can finally sort out recent events. It's dangerous. After blasting Demo's head with one punch, Su Chen couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief, with a look of luck on his face. The next moment, he saw the phantom of the bloody demon behind him suddenly collapse and dissipate, and the extremely violent energy vortex with him as the center also suddenly disappeared without a trace, and his whole body suddenly became extremely weak, and his eyes turned black, collapsed to the ground. Although he easily slaughtered Pei Zongbin, Demo and others, it was actually extremely thrilling just now. It was only a little bit close. After the violent power in him disappeared, no one on their side could stop him from starting the second attack. The Dao Jin locked Demo will not be the one to kill Demo and the others, but Demo will be the one to kill their entire team. Fortunately, this did not happen. After the battle ended, Su Chen, who was mentally relaxed, could no longer hold on. He reluctantly activated the flame seed mark on his chest, and after opening the time and space portal with the authority of the captain, he completely passed out and fell unconscious. When Su Chen woke up, he found that he had returned to the 1305 survival base and was receiving light cocoon treatment. Sitting up, Su Chen quickly checked his body and found that all the injuries on his body had been healed, and his left and right arms were back to normal, but there was no joy on Su Chen's face. Because he clearly felt that there was a foreign object in his body. To be precise, it should be a power crystal, hidden in the palm of his left hand. Let's just call it crystallization of demonic power for now. Su Chen smiled bitterly. In the previous battle, although he fought back and successfully killed the Black Dragon King Nefarian, he also paid a price for it. In addition to his demonic transformation, there is an inexplicable addition of such a power crystal in the body. Suddenly, Su Chen found that the difference between himself and ordinary humans was getting bigger and bigger. Even compared with Yao Bear and other superpowers, he was still very different. Forced by the mutated devil fruit, he had already embarked on the path of evolution that is very different from others. Whether this path of evolution is good or bad, Su Chen has no way of judging, because many times, he has no choice at all. After thinking for a moment, Su Chen stopped thinking about it. A look of perseverance flashed in his eyes. No matter what, he would work hard to survive and would never fall down easily. Not in a hurry to break the light cocoon, Su Chen sat cross-legged on the ground and summarized the previous battles, especially the battle with the Black Dragon King Nefarian. After the Black Dragon King Nefarian activated the Gene-Lock fighting state, he was forced into a desperate situation and seemed certain to die. But at the most critical moment, he entered a wonderful fighting state and finally found a way to break the situation. So blood energy can still be used like this. Su Chen's eyes flashed with strange light. After destroying the demon blood altar, through the devil fruit in his body, he devoured and absorbed the huge blood energy stored in it, and then completely detonated it. No matter it was the bloody demon phantom and the extremely violent bloody energy vortex actually all come from devouring and absorbing blood energy. Su Chen had always thought that blood energy was used to maintain genetic locks or to maintain a demonic fighting state. However, after the previous battle, he was shocked to find that if the blood energy in his body could be detonated, it would burst out. The power is simply beyond imagination. Thinking of the previous battle scene where he beat up the Black Dragon King Nefarian and beheaded him, the corner of Su Chen's mouth curled up slightly, and he still felt like his blood was boiling even now. Also, in a sense, he created another combat skill of his own, and obtained the information prompts and naming rights of the totem pole. However, at that time, he was focused on fighting the Black Dragon King Nefarian, and he was not able to do it at all. There was no time to care, so after checking it now, Su Chen found that the totem pole had named it Blood Fury. The name of the combat skill Blood Fury is not bad, but it is different from the demonic fire sacrifice. I'm afraid it will be difficult to use it again in the future. Su Chen was excited but also a little depressed. There is no doubt about the power of the Blood Fury combat skill, but the amount of blood energy consumed is so astonishing that it cannot be consumed at all. Take his previous battle with Black Dragon King Nefarian as an example. After devouring all the blood energy stored in the Demon Blood Altar, he obtained 100,000 points of blood energy, and then used the Blood Rage combat skill, activated. In less than a minute, all the 100,000 points of blood energy were consumed, and now there were only 2 or 3 pitiful points of blood energy left in his body, which was almost the same as none. Such a terrifying demand for blood energy, such a terrifying consumption of blood energy is simply not something he can afford now, at least in the short term. After a moment of confusion, Su Chen's eyes flashed with excitement, and he quickly focused on the gains from this battle. 40 battlefield contribution points. Now it's released. Su Chen smiled with joy. Although he had already vaguely guessed in his heart, after all, this time he killed the ultimate boss, the Black Dragon King Nefarian, but when he saw after finally getting so many battlefield contribution points, he was still very excited. You must know that according to the mission reward conditions given by the totem pole, every 100 battlefield contribution points can be exchanged for 1305 island energy points. In other words, after this battle, their 4,000 survival base suddenly obtained island energy points. Originally, Su Chen was still worried about how to drag the Grey Wolf and others from the Watch Security Company on Earth into the alternate parallel space. Now with such an island power, the problem is solved. Not only can everyone be dragged into 1305 to survive, base, and can also start recruiting more manpower. After carefully checking the mission reward information sent by the totem pole, Su Chen was surprised to find that after completing the second stage of the totem pole mission, their 1305 survival base also received additional totem mission rewards. Get an additional 3,000 island energy rewards. All in all, Su Chen suddenly gained 7,000 points of island power. Although this Black Wing Lair totem mission was unimaginably difficult and extremely thrilling, as the saying goes, high risks often come with high returns. The gains from this totem mission were also extremely rich. And there are trophies. After several battles in the Black Wing Lair mission dungeon, and with the explosion rate doubled as a seed survival base, they obtained a large amount of trophies this time, including many weapons and armors, enough to distribute one to newcomers who had just joined the team. Equipped with props. But compared to these, what excites Su Chen the most is the equipment and props that Black Dragon King Nefarian exploded. He passed out due to serious injuries and did not have time to pick them up, but I believe Zhang Ziyuan and others will definitely pick them up before leaving. The battlefield was cleared. Now Su Chen wants to know what Black Dragon King Nefarian revealed. Captain, this is the trophy that Black Dragon King Nefarian broke out, just waiting for you to check it out. As soon as Su Chen emerged from his cocoon, he saw Yi Xiaoshang and others waiting outside, gathered in a group, with faces filled with excitement and anticipation. His expression was even more anxious than Su Chen's. Seeing this, Su Chen was slightly startled, then he couldn't help but smile knowingly, and took the trophy that exploded from the Black Dragon King Nefarian from Wang Xichen's hand. Like the previous boss monster Ragzar, Black Dragon King Nefarian exploded with very few things, only 5 crystal balls, but as the ultimate boss monster of Black Wing Lair, he is also the king of the Black Dragon clan. The Black Dragon everything Wang Nefarian explodes is absolutely top-notch. 3 of the white level crystal balls are wrapped with 3 white level strengthened crystals, and the other blue level crystal ball is wrapped with a blue level strengthened crystal. Through Mo Shang, Su Chen already knows the true value of strengthened crystals. Counting the strengthened crystal that was exploded from the boss monster Ragzar before, he now has 5 strengthened crystals on his body, one of which has an enhanced success rate. The harvest from higher blue-level strengthening crystals can be said to be extremely rich. And this is the foundation. Whether it was the 7,000 island energy points on their body, the 5 rare strengthening crystals, or the large number of weapons and armor they obtained, plus the special totem-building dragon nest, their 1305 survival base finally swept away the embarrassing situation in the past and began to possess own strategic resource reserves. What's more, after Grey Wolf and other special operations veterans are in place, their 1305 survival base's disadvantage in numbers can be made up, and it will be comparable to other large survival bases. Putting away the 4 strengthening crystals, Su Chen took a deep breath, and finally reached out to grab the crystal ball that flashed with bright silver light. I saw a miniature black dragon wrapped in the silver-level crystal ball, like a living creature, roaring silently. As Su Chen crushed the silver-level crystal ball, the miniature black dragon suddenly sank into Su Chen's body. Immediately afterwards, the flame seed mark on Su Chen's chest suddenly became hot, and he received a message from the totem pole. Su Chen, you have just absorbed the soul of a silver-level black dragon. You can choose the type of weapons and armor you want. Black Dragon, the soul will complete its final transformation. Choose the categories of weapons and armor by yourself. Can you choose the attributes of weapons and armor? Su Chen's heart moved slightly and he couldn't help but ask. But the embarrassing thing is that his question was ignored by the totem pole and there was no response at all. I knew there was no such thing as a good thing. Su Chen touched his nose, cursed, and then began to think seriously. Between weapons and armor, he has always been short of a handy weapon and will definitely choose weapons without any hesitation. The only thing that needs to be determined is the type of weapon. Although he has always used a battle axe, as his strength increases, the blue-level combat skill Thunderstrike is becoming less and less useful, and it can no longer keep up with demand. In this case, there is no need for him to deliberately choose a battle axe weapon in order to perform a Thunderstrike. Su Chen prefers big swords to battle axes. Just the big sword. After thinking for a while, Su Chen made a decision, and as he finished speaking, he saw a strange-looking big sword appear out of thin air in Su Chen's hand. The reason for its peculiar shape is that the whole body of this sword is covered with fine dragon scales. The tip of the sword is a black dragon head, and the hilt is a black dragon tail, which wraps around Su Chen's right hand holding the sword. Immediately afterwards, the flame seed mark on Su Chen's chest suddenly became hot, and he received the specific weapon attributes from the totem pole. Dragon's Sorrow. Weapon level. Silver level. Weapon attributes. This is a weapon formed by the condensed soul of the Black Dragon. It contains the endless resentment from the Black Dragon King Nefarian. Holding this weapon will lead to the crazy pursuit of the Dragon Clan, especially the Black Dragon Clan. But similarly, with the blessing of the Black Dragon King Nefarian's soul, Dragon Sorrow can easily break through the dragon's physical defense, thereby causing double the damage. After activating the Black Dragon's flame, Dragon's Sorrow will emit several dragon flame breaths, covering a 10-foot radius, thereby killing and injuring the enemy. The Wrath of the Black Dragon summons the soul of the Black Dragon to fight. It lasts for 30 seconds and has a cooldown of 24 hours. Black Dragon's Bite. Dragon's Sorrow is contaminated with the dark evil power of the Black Dragon King Nefarian. After killing any creature, it will automatically swallow and absorb the soul of the creature. It is specially noted that the more souls absorbed and swallowed, the more powerful the Black Dragon's flame will be. It will also increase greatly, and the same is true for the Black Dragon's Wrath. The summoned Black Dragon soul will be even more powerful. Weapon status. This is a special weapon made from the soul of the Black Dragon. Unless the soul of the Black Dragon in the Dragon's Sorrow is shattered, otherwise, the Dragon's Sorrow will not be shattered. As expected of a silver-level weapon, it has such powerful weapon attributes. After reading it, Su Chen couldn't put it down and stroked the Dragon's Sorrow in his hand, feeling very excited. Although holding the Dragon's Sorrow would lead to a crazy pursuit from the Dragon Clan, which made him a little depressed, this side effect was nothing compared to the other attributes attached to the Dragon's Sorrow. The flames of the Black Dragon can replace the Thunderstrike, which greatly makes up for his lack of range damage. Needless to say, the Wrath of the Black Dragon. Summoning a Black Dragon soul to fight can not only have an unexpected combat effect, the Black Dragon's fury, the fighting power of the soul, is also worth looking forward to. There is also the Black Dragon's Bite, which is equivalent to increasing the power of Dragon's Sorrow in disguise. If Dragon's Sorrow is strengthened in the future, then Dragon's Sorrow can definitely become a top-quality silver-level weapon. Captain, the shape of your Dragon's Sorrow weapon is too cool. You killed Lancelot instantly. Yi Xiaoxiang's face was full of admiration. It looked like Su Chen was holding a sword-shaped black dragon in his hand. Coupled with the flashing silver brilliance, it is really as cool as it is, and as domineering as it is. The same is true in terms of attributes. Although I don't know the attributes of Lancelot's silver weapon, I can be sure that it is definitely not as good as the Captain's Dragon's Sorrow. You must know that it is formed by the condensed soul of the Black Dragon, and this soul of the Black Dragon is also not an ordinary Black Dragon, but the King of Black Dragons, Nefarian. Lei Keming touched his chin, jealous, wishing he could have such a weapon. Bai Mofeng and others nodded repeatedly, agreeing with this. A very simple conclusion. If it were Lancelot, facing the Black Dragon King Nefarian with the Gene Lock in combat, Lancelot would probably be dead long ago. Zhang Ziyuan did not participate in the comments, but the corner of his mouth curled up slightly, showing a faint smile. It is estimated that Lei Keming and others did not notice that when they were on the Livingston planet, Lancelot was still the fierce man they needed to look up to. People, but now they are a little dismissive. This is probably the confidence brought by the improvement in strength. This style is indeed a bit too trendy. It's just for fighting. It's better to put it away at ordinary times. Seeing Yi Xiaoxiang and others acting like this, Su Chen couldn't help but shook his head in amusement, and directly put the Dragon's Sorrow into it. In the space storage compartment, if it is carried like Lancelot, it will be too hateful. Although his mentality has changed now and he has become very fierce, Su Chen still keeps a low profile and does not want to show off on such things. The matter of the Black Dragon King Nefarian's trophies came to an end for the time being, and Su Chen asked, should the Timber Wolf and others be back too? Calculating, it's almost time. Zhang Ziyuan responded. According to the previous arrangement, Timberwolf led the team and took sailors and other newcomers into the Frostfire Ridge mission dungeon trial. Although they could not obtain trophies, they could hone their combat skills and at the same time allow sailors and other newcomers to experience the alien parallel space. A bloody battle to complete the transformation of identity and psychology as soon as possible. As he spoke, not long after, a space-time portal suddenly flashed into view, and then the Timberwolf and others, covered in blood, stumbled out of it, each one covered with scars and looking extremely miserable. Not only that, there were also battle attrition. Originally, there were 30 sailors and other international mercenaries, but now there are only 20, which means that 10 people have been lost. Timberwolf, what's going on? Su Chen frowned slightly and asked. After the bloody experience of Planet Livingston, Timberwolf and others have grown up rapidly, which is why he felt confident letting Timberwolf lead the team, but who would have thought that so many people would be lost? Captain, I'm sorry, it was my dereliction of duty, and I am willing to bear all punishment. The Timberwolf lowered his head and said with a look of shame on his face. Captain, this is not the Timberwolf's problem at all, but those guys disobeying the command and acting privately, disrupting our tactical plan. If the Timberwolves hadn't led us to fight to the death, all of those guys would have died long ago. Qing Lang couldn't help but feel sorry for the forest wolf. Sailor, what did you say? Su Chen frowned more and more, turning to look at the sailor. Well, we did go a little too far. The sailor scratched his head, but he did not shirk his responsibility. He was quite upset and regretful. After entering the Frostfire Ridge dungeon and seeing how easily the Timber Wolf and others hunted down a giant silver wolf, the sailors and the others were eager to give it a try. They ignored the warnings of the Timber Wolf and the others and quietly looked for prey to attack, hoping to prove this. After looking at his own abilities, who would have thought that he would actually create a big trap and attract a pack of terrifying wolves? If the forest wolf and others had not fought to save him, their casualties would have been even more serious. That's it. After figuring out what happened, Su Chen relaxed his brows and did not mean to criticize Timber Wolf and others. He first let Timber Wolf and others treat the injuries, and then said to Yi Xiaoxiang, I'll leave this matter to you. If something like this happens again in the future, I will directly hold you accountable. Originally, Su Chen planned to severely punish the sailors and others who disobeyed orders and acted privately, but after thinking about it, he finally decided to leave it to Yi Xiaoxiang to handle it. According to the previous decision, the sailors and others now belong to the First Watch Team, and as Yi Xiaoshang is the captain of the First Watch Team, it is more appropriate to leave this matter to him. After all, these are his subordinates. Also, since it has been decided to gradually delegate power, it is necessary for Yi Xiaoshang and other team captains to truly establish their own prestige. Considering this aspect, it is not convenient for him to directly intervene. As he said, in the future, he only needs to ask the squad leader to hold him accountable for such matters. Don't worry, Captain, I will teach those fools a lesson. Yi Xiaoshang looked gloomy. Originally, he successfully opened the first gene lock in this Black Wing Lair totem mission, and he was in a good mood, but now he sees his team he lost a third of his manpower when he first came up, which made him very depressed. But just when Yi Xiaoshang was planning to teach the sailor and others a lesson, an unexpected change occurred. Bai Mofeng, who was responsible for monitoring the surrounding situation, suddenly changed his expression, rubbed his eyes vigorously, and shouted loudly, "Captain, this is not true, is it?" 30 new people suddenly appeared on the beach. How is this possible? Su Chen was also in disbelief and hurried to the beach. Yi Xiaoshang no longer bothered to teach the sailors and others a lesson, and together with Zhang Ziyuan and others, followed Su Chen quickly. He quickly rushed to the beach and saw a group of newlyweds lying on the beach who had not yet woken up. Su Chen's eyes flashed with strange light. He did not expect that what Bai Mofeng said was true. Although he knew very well that Bai Mofeng would not joke about such a thing, Su Chen was still a little surprised after seeing it with his own eyes. Because this is too abnormal. You must know that since their 1305 survival base was established, they have only replenished new blood twice until now, and the number of new people added is pitiful, especially in the recent period, there has not been a single new person, so that they no longer expect anything. With the addition of fresh blood, we began to think of ways to solve the manpower problem. But who would have thought that at this moment, the alien parallel space suddenly gave them a surprise, and it suddenly replenished their 1305 survival base with a lot of fresh blood. Could it be that the unstable void crack has been repaired? Su Chen couldn't help but guess, but if he thought about it carefully, it was impossible. The military would definitely not do such a thing, and there should be no such thing. That ability. Also, when he returned to Earth last time, he made some insinuations and got some information from Colonel Liu Yu. It was said that the crack in the void they entered had been abandoned by the military because it was too unstable and dangerous. If the unstable void crack had not been repaired, then I guess there may have been major changes on the Earth, such as the emergence of denser void cracks. Zhang Ziyuan's eyes flickered, and he vaguely guessed something. Only in this way can it be explained that the 1305 survival base, which was extremely lucky, would suddenly add so much fresh blood, and if the guess was correct, the other survival bases would add even more people. It seems that my original inference was correct. The alternate parallel space has begun to gradually devour the Earth. Perhaps one day in the future, the entire Earth will be included in the alternate parallel space. All human races will participate in the bloody trial and start a bloody killing process. A new era for mankind. Zhang Ziyuan's eyes flashed with blood, his body trembled slightly, he was very excited and couldn't wait to see that day come. Captain, don't worry, although our group has retired, the blood of Langya will always flow in our bodies, and we will never let down the trust of you and Lao Lei. The gray wolf who was awakened hurriedly expressed his loyalty. I trust this. Just tell the others that after the matters on Earth are settled, I will take you into a different parallel space. Su Chen responded with a slight smile. Although he deliberately kept a distance from the military, Su Chen did not reject soldiers. He especially admired pure soldiers like Lei Keming and the profound friendship between them. After appeasing Wei Lang and others, Su Chen began to plan the future development of Shuang Security Company. A training camp would definitely be launched, and Su Chen planned to completely establish the reputation of their Shuang Security Company. In the past, this area was under the control of the government army. Most people who wanted to enter the alternate parallel space had to obtain the approval of the government army. However, since the dark day on Earth, the situation has been completely out of control. The government military he has long been unable to control and has no time to care, so he can proceed with his plan boldly and confidently. Let's open a training camp in the name of the Langya Special Forces. After thinking carefully, Su Chen raised the corner of his mouth slightly. The name of the Lenya Special Forces is still very bluffing. If you don't take advantage of such a unique advantage, it would be a pity to waste it once. Moreover, here are all genuine Wolf Fang Special Forces. They are not false advertisements, nor are they deceitful. The students who will participate in the training camp will naturally be able to feel this. The only thing that needs to be worried about is the reaction of the military, but now the military is too busy to take care of such trivial matters, and even if they know about it, they probably won't embarrass these retired veterans of the Wolf Fang, and will only think that they are doing it. Just make a living by your own efforts. As soon as he thought of it, Su Chen first contacted a well-known headhunting company and spent high intermediary fees, coupled with generous salary packages, to directly recruit a top talent in publicity and operations from the advertising and media industry. The man's name was Li Muhao, who was in his early 40s. Under the urging of the resolute Su Chen, he went through the resignation procedures that day, left the company, and drove to Shuang Security Company. When the bag stood in front of the gate of Shuang Security Company, Li Muhao was still a little dizzy, and it felt unreal. If the headhunting company that poached him hadn't had a good reputation, and his bank card, he would have charged it directly. With an 8-figure annual salary, he really wouldn't do such crazy things. Taking a deep breath, Li Muhao stepped into the door of Shuang Security Company. While feeling uneasy, he was also very curious because his new boss was very mysterious. He had never heard of this person despite his wide network of contacts. Number 1, and from previous phone calls, I could tell that my new boss was very young. From Li Muhao's point of view, it was almost certain that his new boss was a rich second-generation son with a rich family, who was interested in entering the advertising and media industry, and that was why he made such a big move. However, after meeting Su Chen in person, Li Muhao realized that he was completely wrong. He often went to high society social occasions and tried his best to connect Su Chen with those famous rich second-generation princes. Not only that, Li Muhao, who has a sharp eye, also found that Su Chen did not have the airs of a wealthy man, no matter how he dressed or talked or behaved, and he was not even close to the upper-class society. This made him very confused, knowing that he could take it casually. Offering an 8-figure salary and paying it directly to his bank card is such a generous act that even many famous second-generation rich men cannot make. After taking a look at Li Muhao, Su Chen said calmly, "There is no need to speculate on my identity. That is not an issue you should be concerned about. You only need to do what I told you. Professional matters should be handled by professional talents." Su Chen didn't want to waste energy on advertising and publicity, and he didn't have the time. "Yes, boss," Li Muhao responded respectfully with his heart trembling. Although Su Chen didn't look like the rich second-generation son in his impression, Li Muhao didn't feel any contempt in his heart. Instead, he became more and more in awe, because the young Su Chen actually had a sense of superiority. He looked at the author's majesty, and a casual glance at him made him feel nervous and suffocated. What Li Muhao didn't know was that this was not actually the majesty of a superior person, but Su Chen's iron-blooded temperament honed through bloody battles. In addition, he had just returned from the Blackwing Lair mission copy, and the strong murderous aura in his body had not yet dissipated, which brought him great psychological pressure. "Don't be nervous. What I asked you to do is not difficult. You just need to get the reputation of our Shuang Security Company out in the shortest possible time." Su Chen also noticed this, restrained his murderous aura, smiled slightly, and said, "Boss, don't worry, I promise to do everything beautifully." Li Muhao's expression relaxed, and a touch of confidence flashed in his eyes. It was just a package to promote an unknown security company. For him, there is no difficulty at all in saying this. "Very good, this is 10 million advertising fees. If it is not enough, I can continue to add more, as long as there is a good advertising effect." Su Chen nodded slightly and explained a series of his ideas to Li Muhao. After finishing speaking, looking at Li Muhao who looked a little dull, Su Chen couldn't help but ask, "What? Do you have any questions? If you have any questions, ask them now, because I will be traveling for a long time in the past 2 days, and I don't think I will be there for a long time." "Will be at." "No problem." Li Muhao, who came back to his senses, shook his head vigorously first, then swallowed hard, and couldn't help but ask, "Boss, I'm just a little confused, you have spent such a huge amount of money, is it really true?" For this Shuang security company. Li Muhao didn't understand. Even if the training camp was extremely successful, it would be impossible to recover the cost, not even his annual salary. From a business perspective, this was a complete loss-making business. Originally, Li Muhao thought that this was just a test of his ability by the new boss. After this matter was completed, he would be appointed to form a new advertising media company and then make a bold move into the advertising industry. But who would have thought that his new boss would actually be successful? Pounced on this unknown security company and spent so much money just to successfully hold a training camp. Do you believe me when I say this is charity? Su Chen asked with a chuckle. I believe it. Li Muhao nodded vigorously and responded. Seeing Li Muhao who didn't mean what he said, Su Chen shook his head and said with a smile, it's not convenient to disclose the specific reason to you. In short, you just need to handle this matter for me. To borrow a saying from the rich man, I am willful when I am rich. Qin Lanzu didn't know why he had such an idea, but when the idea suddenly popped up in his mind, he felt inexplicably excited. PB. And he wanted more and more to integrate Ajin into his flesh and blood and become a part of his body. This thought made him inexplicably extremely satisfied. Hearing Qin Lanzu's gentle question, a certain string in Su Mujun's heart suddenly tightened, but there was nothing strange about his face. He was still smiling sweetly, with an evil spirit, and his secluded eyes flashed with a little bit of the play between lovers. Playfully, he looked at Qin Lanzu quite interestingly. A shui, that's a great idea, but why didn't I eat you? Su Mujun came closer, stretched out his hand and gently hooked Qin Lanzu's neck, staring straight into his blue pupils with a pair of dark and bright cat eyes, with a bit of bad teasing and teasing. Qin Lanzu's hot and cool breath was slightly released by Su Mujun's sudden words and actions, and her blue pupils were suddenly stunned. She stared blankly at the evil and evil light in Su Mujun's eyes, and her mind went blank for a moment. Nothing can be condensed. But after a moment, those dazed eyes gradually fell into some kind of tangled and thoughtful emotion. He looked at Mr. Su Mu suspiciously, with a little surprise, a little doubt, and a little entanglement. Qin Lanzu's first reaction was, Ajin wants to eat him. The second reaction immediately after that was, Ajin actually wanted to eat him. The last reaction was that Ajin actually had the same thoughts as hers. Does this mean that in Ajin's heart, she is also hers, and she also likes her to the point where she is willing to fuse flesh and blood? Seeing the thoughts and entanglements in Qin Lanzu's eyes, the smile on Su Mujun's lips became a little deeper, and the evil nature in it became more intense. The ghostly cat's eyes flashed with an evil and evil light. A shui doesn't want to. The low murmur seemed to carry a bit of heart-wrenching melancholy, subtly seducing the minds of those who listened. If Qin Lanzu is the fascinating devil in the darkness, then Su Mujun is the evil ghost who is 1 foot taller than the devil. It's just that this evil spirit was sleeping on weekdays. It wasn't until he met Qin Lanzu, a perverted and twisted devil, that the evil spirit sleeping deep in Mr. Su Mu's soul gradually came to life. Who said that Su Mujun's parents can't be considered normal people? As a descendant raised by that group of unique people, how could he really be just an ordinary, normal person? Moreover, if they were really ordinary people, how could they be so unafraid to fall in love with Qin Lanzu, a sick person who could drag her into hell at any time? How could they have the courage and pleasure to hunt this sick person? Qin Lanzu was instantly pulled back from deep thought by this gentle murmur. She stared at Mr. Su Mu with an extremely serious expression and spoke cautiously and matter-of-factly. As long as Ajin wants it, a shui will give it to me. Su Mujun's eyes flashed with an almost invisible smile, and a bright smile bloomed on her fair face. Her eyes looking at Qin Lanzu were clearer than ever before. Qin Lanzu saw that Mr. Su Mu was happy, and the melancholy that twisted his heart was gone, and she also started to laugh. That pure and beautiful smile was full of innocence and evil, and it was so complicated and contradictory that it made people confused. Just when Su Mujun's eyes flashed with a hint of trance, Qin Lanzu's dark purple lips opened and closed slightly, spitting out a gentle and doting sound. How would you like to eat, Ajin? With a doting and gentle voice, he asked solemnly and earnestly, as if he was planning this as the most important thing in his life. Su Mujun's heart skipped a beat. It was clearly a question that should make people's hair stand on end and send chills all over her body, but she just felt drowning, just like the endless deep sea, where the rolling waves brought not suffocating darkness, but intoxication of warmth. How could her shui be so sincere and pure that it makes people feel distressed? Just because of her words, she really planned to dedicate her whole self, and even cared about her feelings so tenderly and dotingly, asking her how she wanted to eat. Steamed, braised, deep-fried, or take it one bite at a time and taste it slowly. In her pupils that were as clear as a mirror, she saw different ways of eating, which made her heart warm and feel the pain of suffocation. Su Mujun felt that something was blurring her eyes. She didn't want to explore or pay attention to it, she just wanted to hug Ashu tightly. Su Mujun thought so and did the same thing. He tightened his arms and hugged Qin Lanzu's beautiful swan-like neck tightly. He hugged her tightly because he was a whole head shorter than Qin Lanzu. On the first floor, Su Mujun almost the whole thing hangs on Qin Lanzu's body. Qin Lanzu frowned slightly, her clear and beautiful red phoenix eyes flashed with a touch of confusion, and at the same time there seemed to be a touch of unconscious pain. However, her movements were very cooperative and she bent down to hug Su Mujun's waist, so that she could relax some. Ajin, Qin Lanzu called out tentatively, wondering, "What's wrong with you?" "It hurts," Su Mujun murmured coldly. Yes, she felt distressed. How could Qin Lanzu use such a perverted, dark, twisted and clever character to make people feel so distressed? She is so innocent that even if she wants to be afraid, she can't do it. It's so bad, so it's hard to stop loving. A dark and seductive blue flickered slightly in Qin Lanzu's clear eyes, and an unknown dark smile curled up. A clear and beautiful smile bloomed on his dark purple lips, and the intoxicating clear tone was shallow. Draw out shallowly. Need for you. Ha! Mr. Su Mu laughed out loud, and the ghostly cat's eyes became clear at some point, because Qin Lanzu's words shone with a little evil light, and he smiled playfully. What? You want to touch this body? Qin Lanzu tightly hugged Su Mujun's arms and relaxed slightly because of her words. A wrinkle flashed on her beautiful brows, and a ray of coolness floated in her clear pupils. Qingyan said a faint and intoxicating sentence. Just like the mysterious sound penetrating through the distant mountains, it is filled with deep joy. The fog in the clear lake disperses, and sparkling waves appear. Ajin, warm, a shui likes it. Just like it. It's just that the arms surrounding Su Mujun became a little tighter, as if they were trying to rub Su Mujun completely into his body. Warmth, Qin Lanzu murmured, her clear eyes slightly dazed, curled up in a confusing fog, making it difficult to see what was hidden under the fog. A shui, this is warmth. The warmth that can only arise between lovers, relatives, and friends, and can only be experienced by the most important people. I failed to bring you warmth in the past 15 years, but I will never give you warmth in the future. Nian, I will give you your warmth. Su Mujun hugged Qin Lanzu's waist, patted his back gently, and chuckled. The murmurings seemed to contain too many indescribable emotions, but only the strong infatuation was extremely clear. Ajin. In the end, this loss of control was transformed into a tight hug by him, holding Su Mujun tightly in his arms, burying his face deeply into her neck, greedily absorbing the faint cold fragrance of her body. Taking the chopsticks handed over by Su Mujun, Qin Lanzu raised his eyes and looked at the woman in front of him. The smile on her face seemed to have less evil and more unconcealable tenderness, which made him extremely sentimental and fascinated, and even almost lost control of her. PB. The only thing that was certain was that he liked this feeling, this warm feeling that he had never experienced before. Although it made him feel as if his brain had stopped functioning, it made him enjoy the blankness. Qin Lanzu couldn't explain how she felt in her heart when she saw this bowl of longevity noodles and the woman next to her who was smiling and talking so warmly. She just felt warm, just like this bowl of noodles, with a confusing and dense atmosphere, which made her feel warm. It was like a deep fog that he couldn't see through or understand. Just from the overall combination and color, it makes people's appetites rise and their stomachs roll. For Qin Lanzu, the heat coming out of the bowl is not an appetite-inducing fragrance, but a temperature that warms his heart. Qin Lanzu looked at the big bowl on the plate in a daze. The bowl was steaming with an appetizing aroma. A green vegetable on the noodles was fresh and delicious, and the white and tender egg white next to it was attractive. The tender egg yolk in the middle of the egg white has a bright luster, and the tender egg yolk juice makes people want to take a sip. Try it quickly. This is my first time cooking. Although every step is extremely precise and correct, there shouldn't be any problems with the taste. But you still have to eat it before you can really confirm it. Su Mujun put the food plate on the table and looked back at Chin Lanzu with a smile, then reached out and handed him the chopsticks on the food plate. This is longevity noodles. Many people in our country are accustomed to eating a bowl of longevity noodles on their birthdays to seek good luck. Su Mujun also knew that Chin Lanzu was also awake when he woke up. After all, this was not the first time they slept together. With past experiences, Su Mujun naturally knew how focused Chin Lanzu was when he was with her. When Chin Lanzu saw Su Mujun come in, she put the book in her hand on the table and stood up and walked over. Her clear eyes fell on the food plate in her hand, and the sparkling light was extremely charming. When Su Mujun walked into the inner hall with a food tray, he saw Chin Lanzu leaning on the couch she had leaned on last night and reading a history book. At this time, Xiao Lingxi secretly made an extremely firm decision in his heart. From this moment on, this great nobleman will be his idol. Darling, there is actually a woman in this world who can suppress his sick and terrifying imperial master. What if this nobleman is really a woman? As he watched, Xiao Lingxi's eyes darkened, and he was filled with surprise and uncertainty. Even though the slender figure was covered by a dark purple dragon robe that was several sizes larger than that, one could still faintly see the waist that was slender and softer than that of an ordinary boy. Xiao Lingxi's bright and dark eyes looked at Su Mujun's back suspiciously, as if he was comparing and exploring something. This noble man's love is too. Little Lingxi followed Su Mujun with a flustered mind. Looking at Su Mujun's back, his eyes were filled with hidden turbulence that was difficult to calm down, and even contained the slightest bit of weird emotions. After the soup was mixed and the longevity noodles were taken out of the pot, Su Mujun fried a tender yellow egg and garnished it on the noodles. He picked up the noodle bowl and said to the kitchen, "Send the meal to the inner hall," and left first. Although she could see her mother cooking longevity noodles for her fathers every year on their birthdays before, and each step was clearly engraved in her mind, Su Mujun was still a little unsure about the actual operation, so the whole people are extremely focused. Su Mujun didn't have time to pay attention to the expressions of the palace people around her. From the moment she started cooking, Su Mujun's entire mind was focused on cooking noodles. This was the first time she had cooked something by herself. When he came back to his senses, the noodles had already been cooked, and it was too late to persuade him. Even Xiao Lingxi, a sensitive person, couldn't react for a moment. He just stared blankly and stunned from a distance as Su Mujun's elegant figure was contaminated by the smoke of the kitchen. Xiao Lingxi and other palace attendants were originally wondering what this extremely bright and fair-looking young master was doing in the small kitchen. When they saw Su Mujun instructing the cook to boil water and prepare all the ingredients, and rolled up his sleeves to roll out the dough, they all started to wonder. Their eyes widened in shock. This child was born at the wrong time, and has never experienced the slightest warmth until he is 16 years old. This bowl of longevity noodles is just the right thing to give to Ashu as a birthday gift. After much deliberation, Su Mujun had no choice but to imitate what his mother had done with his father when they were together, and cook a bowl of longevity noodles for A Shui. Chin Lanzu has no shortage of expensive things. As for things that fit Chin Lanzu's morbid character, the palace servants in Changxing Palace have been tamed by Chin Lanzu, and no one has come to die, so there is a lack of materials. Su Mujun did prepare a gift, but it wasn't anything special, just an ordinary bowl of longevity noodles. The experimental building is several hundred meters wide, and its length is unknown, but it is very long anyway. People who have not seen the design drawings cannot deduce how many kilometers it is if they walk in without seeing the design drawings. Lu Zhan first came in and led the Special Forces members to fight the monsters for about a kilometer. From where he ran to meet Bai Mo and the other two, it took about 1.5 kilometers, which added up to almost 3 kilometers. The three of them started to work together when they encountered a big python, which was probably 1 kilometer away, and then introduced the big python for more than 1 kilometer to fight with the monsters, which was almost more than 2 kilometers away. After dealing with the python and the dozens of monster reinforcements, Lu Zhan and the others walked more than 1 kilometer from the battlefield. From the moment I sneaked into the experimental building and walked all the way inside, it was almost 7 kilometers away. What is the concept of 7 kilometers? The equivalent of a car traveling at 60 kilometers per hour would take 7 minutes. It was almost 7 kilometers from Luzon's first sneak into the building, but he still hadn't reached the innermost part. He had the ability to detect distant movements 1 kilometer in advance, and he hadn't seen the condition of the innermost wall. In other words, even if you walk a kilometer or two, you may not reach the innermost part. I really don't know who the designer of this experimental building is, and why the length was increased so quickly instead of changing the required area to width, or adding 1 or 2 floors higher, just running from one end to the other. It doesn't have to be that far. But this is a desert, and there is floating sand a few meters deep underground. The foundation cannot be said to be very stable because it is surrounded by floating sand. If the floor is too high, the center of gravity is in the sky, which means that the upper part is heavier than the foundation and 1 or 2 floors below. There are many tornadoes and 10-level storms in the desert. If a building is too tall and is hit by a storm, it will easily collapse because the center of gravity of the wall is at a high place. If the upper part tilts slightly, the lower part will be uprooted. All the dormitory buildings, arsenals, and laboratories in the Desert Weapons Experimental Base will not exceed 3 floors, and the center of gravity will be as low as possible. These designers made each building so slender. Their purpose may be to protect a large area from wind and sandstorms, and to expand the load-bearing range of the foundation to completely stabilize the building. In this way, even if one end of the experimental building encounters a sandstorm, the other section will still be intact and will not be affected at all. For such a wide-ranging building, if one does not have the ability to detect all movements within a 1-kilometer radius in advance, one would have to rely solely on human instinct to search inside. In addition, if the monster deliberately hides, it is certain that it will be able to detect movements in advance. It can be said that it can be described as extremely difficult to completely find the monsters hidden inside. Not to mention a search, the special forces sent in may have died before they even got here. It's strange, how come you haven't found a single monster after walking for so long? After walking for a long time without finding any trace of the monster, Mo Qingfeng couldn't help but pursed his lips and asked curiously. It's indeed a bit strange. Lu Zan responded casually and said, there is no trace of monsters for more than a kilometer. Logically speaking, this shouldn't be the case. At least 1 or 2 are hiding in a corner to keep watch. If there is space, with such a large area unguarded, if human special forces suddenly swooped in from here, they would be in danger. Could it be possible that we will kill them all? It is indeed possible, Mo Qingfeng responded half-jokingly. Ha. Lu Zan just smiled faintly and said casually, I hope so that we will be so tired. However, we still have to go to the innermost part to check, and we must make sure that every monster is covered by our eliminate it. Mo Qingfeng nodded and walked in without saying anything. After the 3 of them walked for a while, Lu Zan scratched his head and murmured with some confusion, don't you think it's a little strange? What's weird? Mo Qingfeng muttered instinctively, and then said again, from the time we started to meet until now, you have been mumbling something weird from time to time, but you haven't given a reason for what's weird. Bai Rukong just glanced at Lu Zan and said nothing, obviously he was already used to his behavior. It's still the same as before. Don't you think the monsters are too orderly? Lu Zan rubbed his nose and said slowly and calmly. Hearing this, Mo Qingfeng couldn't help rolling his eyes and said, you have mentioned this matter many times, but you can't explain the reason. Isn't this nonsense? Bai Rukong also rolled his eyes at Lu Zan, obviously feeling a little disgusted and helpless when he repeatedly mentioned this matter. Ha. Lu Zan smiled awkwardly, and then spoke again, we have just said that the monsters behave in a regular manner and cooperate like a human army with a clear division of labor. Of course, many monsters are mutations of us humans, inherited everything from us humans, and blocked all our doubts at once. However, I still feel very strange. At this point, Lu Zan paused, and then slowly said, look, their team was in order before. After we came in, there was another super python, blocking the entrance and exit, like a guard. Not counting these, when the dozens of monsters who reinforced before finally fought with the python, it seemed that one of the first 2 9th-level monsters was the one who attacked him. It seemed that he like a leader commanding these monsters. What do you want to say? Mo Qingfeng raised his eyebrows and asked curiously again. Lu Zan thought about it for a while, and then made a bold guess, I suspect there will be a very powerful monster inside. It will be more powerful than the monsters we encountered before. It is these hundreds of monsters. The leader. Just like Chief Instructor Gong Cheng in our army, he is the leader who gives orders and is in charge of a group of people. Mo Qingfeng thought for a moment, and then responded, it's not surprising. After all, they are evolved and upgraded from us humans. In this world where the weak eat the strong, it's not surprising that the strong are respected and become the leader. After all, there are dragons, it can't be leaderless. That's true. Logically speaking, there's nothing surprising about it, but I still think there's a big problem with it. Lu Zhan shouted in a low voice, then scratched his head and said, just think about how terrifying that python was just now. With the strength of the three of us, no matter what kind of monster we face, we will definitely not suffer a loss if we fight alone. If we were to become monsters, we would definitely be leaders-level figures. Don't talk about me. Even if you two face a big python when it comes, there is no way to win it except running away. The python's defense and destructive power are too strong. You tried your best just now and could only leave a small wound on it. If I hadn't cut off its tongue, to be honest, if you fight it and don't run away and hold on, it will be inevitable in the end. Become a meal on the plate. Lu Zhan first rubbed his nose and said that the supergiant python is very powerful, and then said, don't you think it's strange that such a powerful character has become a bodyguard guarding the entrance and exit? Could it be that there is a stronger being inside? Mo Qingfeng did not speak, and Bai Rukong, who had always been silent, was the first to ask the question. It is indeed possible. Lu Zhan nodded and gave another guess. If there is no monster inside that is more powerful than a python, there must be something particularly important. That is what we humans are currently doing. There are no secrets that have been explored. Mo Qingfeng raised his eyebrows and whispered, why do you think so? Lu Zhan smiled lightly and continued to express his conjectures and opinions. Think about it, why is the python, a monster with devastating combat power, guarding so deep in the experimental building, or in front of the only possible passage further inside? It has such powerful destructive power. If you guard the front and dozens of monsters are helping, 200 members of the Special Forces team will not be able to break in. If I had not arrived here, maybe the two of you would lead squads, and even if you rush in, you can't break through the python's blockade. Thinking about the worst, the monsters have the super killer weapon of python, and it takes only a matter of minutes to break through. If a python rushes into the guarding Special Forces group outside to disrupt the formation and cause panic, other monsters can rush out. Why does it still wait before entering the deeper passage? After hearing Lu Zhan's words, Bai Mo and Bai Mo nodded thoughtfully. After thinking about it, they agreed with his point of view and felt that there was something fishy about the monsters. Mo Qingfeng tilted his head slightly, thought for a while, and said slowly, if you put it this way, there must be a super strong man inside, whose fighting power is much more powerful than a python. It seems that the three of us will be in trouble when facing him. Not enough. Lu Zhan shook his head and said, it's easy to guess that there may be strong people inside. After all, there is a big python stationed there. You can figure it out with a little thought. What I am more troubled about is not this issue. What problem is that? Mo Qingfeng asked. Lu Zhan looked puzzled and asked suspiciously, you said that the monsters include the python, which is extremely destructive, and there may be a super strong person among them. Let alone break out and kill everyone in this laboratory building. Even if we break out, it only takes a matter of minutes, and the pythons have attracted the attention of many special forces. What I don't understand is, why are they not moving here? That's right. Mo Qingfeng patted his head as if he suddenly understood, and then said, why do they stay here in the laboratory building all the time? They can obviously break out and rush out. You must know that the longer they stay, the stronger the human army outside will be. The more plans there are to kill them, the more dangerous they become. The monsters' brains are all upgraded with drugs, so it's impossible not to understand this. Indeed, Bai Rukong, who was relatively taciturn, nodded and followed the analysis. With the python, we don't have to make insignificant sacrifices. Why would they send weaklings to tangle with our Special Forces soldiers and cause them to injure the enemy by 300 and damage themselves by 1? Bai's behavior comes out, not to mention the super strong man who may exist inside. As soon as the giant python comes out, the human army will kill as many as it comes in, and there is no resistance at all. Lu Zan finally felt relieved when he saw that the place he found strange was finally found and recognized by both of them. He raised his eyebrows and said doubtfully again, "So, this is what's really strange. I don't understand what the plans of these monsters are. It seems that there must be something we don't know about inside. It's not just the possibility of a super strong person." Mo Qingfeng sighed. "That's right." Lu Zan nodded, and then said, "No matter what the secrets hidden inside are, there is definitely danger. It may be much more dangerous than when we face the giant python." As soon as the words fell, the three people looked at each other, as if waiting for each other's decision. After a few seconds, Lu Zan said, "There must be dangers inside. You decide whether to stay or leave. Is there any better choice now?" Bai Rukong smiled helplessly and said, "If the three of us can't solve it, who can we expect to solve it?" Mo Qingfeng sneered and said, "My appetite has come out. I definitely want to go in and see what is inside. If it is really dangerous or too powerful, don't you have the ability to detect it 1 kilometer in advance? If you think there is no way if the game continues, we will evacuate in advance, report the coordinates like a boa constrictor, let Gong Cheng command the artillery, and use the cannon to kill the group accurately." Ah, Lu Zan also smiled bitterly and said, "As I thought, since I have come here, of course I have to go in and have a look. No matter what it is, you must understand it first, otherwise you will be disappointed when you go outside. Ichi wants to know. If it's too dangerous, we'll leave 1 kilometer earlier." "Okay, it's decided." Mo Qingfeng nodded in agreement. The next moment, a few of them continued to go deeper for almost a kilometer. From the time they sneaked into the experimental building to now, the total length of progress has been more than 8 kilometers or even 9 kilometers. Ever since the giant python and dozens of reinforced monsters were dealt with, no monsters have appeared within the range of perception along the way. It really makes people feel as if all the monsters have been wiped out. There is a situation. Finally, after walking 500 or 600 meters, Lu Zan's perception ability finally detected the trace of a monster 1 kilometer away, so he instinctively reminded him. He continued to walk forward a few meters and wanted to check more, but was suddenly stunned. Because Lu Zan saw an incredible scene. It was something he had never expected since he knew there was a biological crisis and entered the experimental building. Unbelievable. It's incredible. Lu Zan couldn't believe that everything he saw in his perception ability was real. He felt a little fake because he saw a face he hadn't seen for a long time. That was a doctorate in scientific research. He was one of the 5 scientists that Xiaohu and the others desperately rescued when the Infinite Possibilities Institute was attacked by the Fahrenheit family last time. The 5 scientists who were rescued at that time also had a semi-finished research result in a safe. This doctor was carrying the box at the time and kept thanking Lu Zan repeatedly, as if he hated the island country researcher who leaked the news. A bone-deep guy. How could it be him? Lu Zan couldn't believe it and couldn't believe it. He had to know that from Uncle Chaomu, Qian Wanwan, and Ru Mao Mao, most of the people in the experimental building were eaten by monsters, including the person in charge of this project. None of the several scientists survived, and they were all reduced to food on the plate. The 3 of them said so, and the special forces also broke into it to search and tremble with the monster. The credibility would naturally be very high, and they would definitely not talk nonsense out of thin air. Even Lu Zan himself had witnessed the cannibalistic nature of the monsters. In addition, after searching for 9 kilometers from beginning to end, he did not see a normal human survivor. Naturally, he also thought that there were ordinary staff of the experimental building here, or normal ones, people. But when he noticed something abnormal inside and thought there was some shocking secret, he saw a normal human being in his perception, an old acquaintance. The sudden discovery can really be described as shocking. This is also the reason why Lu Zan suddenly froze when he saw this scene, because he didn't expect it at all, and it was unexpected. "What's wrong?" Seeing Lu Zan stunned, Bai Rukong asked from the side. Lu Zan recovered from his surprise and said, "There are 5 guys, all human beings. 4 of them have strong fluctuations in strength. They are probably at the 9th level of concentration, which is different from the 2 who led dozens of people before. The number of monster reinforcements is almost the same. What surprised me was the 5th person." "What happened to the 5th person?" Mo Qingfeng asked instinctively. "Call." Lu Zan breathed out slowly and said, because he is an acquaintance of mine. Acquaintance? Mo Qingfeng raised his eyebrows in question. Lu Zan nodded and said, I once led a team to save the scientific research team that created this drug, and that person was a scientist I saved. Everyone thought they were dead before, but I didn't expect that they could be saved again here. See, they are still very monsters together. This is indeed a bit surprising. Mo Qingfeng said. Ah, Lu Zan sneered and said, not just surprised, but very surprised. You must know that those monsters are cannibals. Just now we walked along and saw the bones all over the ground. This is the best proof. But the doctor mingled with the monsters, and I didn't detect any power fluctuations in him. He looked like a completely normal person. What? Mo Qingfeng was stunned when he heard this, and said in surprise, ordinary people. Lu Zan didn't speak, but nodded heavily. Bai Rukong smiled coldly and said, if ordinary people stay with monsters, it seems there must be a big problem. Yes, if that doctor had taken any hormone drugs to quickly enhance his abilities and combat effectiveness, it would be almost as good as being able to stay together with those monsters without being eaten. But he is an ordinary person, and there must be something hidden in it. A big secret that I don't know, Lu Zan said. Mo Qingfeng rubbed his chin, and after thinking for a while, he slowly said, could it be that the doctor was kidnapped by the monsters? After all, the monsters have everything they have today. Thanks to this, the doctor and his team worked hard to create it. The monsters are not stupid. They know that the doctor created them, so they kidnapped him to make them stronger. Quote. No. Hearing this, Lu Zan shook his head and denied it. The doctor doesn't look like he was kidnapped at all. On the contrary, it looks like he has controlled all the monsters and become the leader of all monsters, commanding to those monsters who are more powerful than him. In Lu Zan's perception, the doctor was slumped, leaning comfortably on a white slanted mahogany chair, holding a tall wine glass in his hand, which was swaying gently, with blood-red wine flowing slightly inside. Shaking, it looked extremely leisurely and enjoyable. Beside him, 4 monsters were divided into 2 groups and stood beside him, looking full of bodyguards. Just like when a certain important person attends an important occasion, he must be surrounded by security personnel as standard, and he is as grand as a person. At a glance, people can tell that he is the big brother. There was no trace of nervousness on the doctor's face. He was still sitting leisurely in a chair and slowly sipping red wine. Obviously, there had been such a big movement in front of him, and then the movement disappeared, indicating that the battle was over and would never happen again. The monster roared. Anyone who is not stupid knows that the monsters must have been killed by human special forces. After the victory of the strong human beings who killed the monsters and pythons, they will definitely continue to search deeply to see if there are any monsters inside. The remaining monsters inside will definitely be particularly panicked when they know that strong human beings are coming in. Especially when their combat effectiveness and the number of similar monsters have dropped sharply, they should be more afraid and panicked, and look for opportunities to escape. Not to mention humans, every species in nature is afraid of death. No one is willing to live a few more days to see the sun tomorrow. Unless they don't know there is danger, when they know there is imminent danger, they will use their best escape skills and try their best to escape. Unexpectedly, the only remaining scientific doctor and the 4 monsters stayed where they were, as if they didn't know the danger was coming. Or, it's not that they didn't know that human special forces were about to enter here, but they came here specifically to wait for the strong humans to come in. Apart from 4 mutated monsters and 1 person, are there any other powerful monsters hidden elsewhere? Mo Qingfeng asked. Lu Zan shook his head and said, now I have explored more than 100 meters behind them, and I still haven't found any monsters lurking in the dark. Why do I feel like they are waiting for us to come over on purpose? Mo Qingfeng scratched his head and asked in question. I think so too. Lu Zan half squinted his eyes and responded in an extremely serious tone. Mo Qingfeng was silent for a while and then said, is there any fraud in this? Are there more masters lurking further away, or in places where your perception ability cannot temporarily detect them? I don't feel like it. Lu Zan denied it at first, and then added, but it's not impossible. After all, my perception ability has not completely penetrated the entire experimental building, and I can see the wall on the other side. With the scenery outside, naturally anything can happen. What should we do? Do we want to kill him? Mo Qingfeng asked, looking at Lu Zan as if asking for advice. Bai Rukong also looked over and gave the decision-making power to Lu Zan, a wise man with rich combat experience and a strong sense of strategy. After Lu Zan thought for a while, he said, "My suggestion is to go in. After all, their apparent combat power is only 4 concentrated 9th-level martial arts monsters. It won't be very difficult for the 3 of us to eliminate them. If there are monsters hiding behind, and we approach them and detect the danger 1 kilometer in advance, we can also evacuate. We are all here, even if we know that there is a mountain of swords and a sea of fire ahead, we still have to bravely rush through to see what these monsters and the scientific doctor are up to." Quote. When Mo Qingfeng heard what Lu Zan said, he just sneered and responded, "Then go in. If you don't go in to find out what's going on when you come here, or kill all those monsters, there will definitely be trouble later. Regrettable." "Me too," Bai Rukong responded coldly. "Okay, that's it." Lu Xuanying shouted and said, "Actually, my biggest doubt now is not whether there is any danger, but why the scientific doctor survived and got mixed up with the monsters. I saved him with my own hands. I don't care about this matter. You have to figure it out. Let's go in and meet them and they will know. If they are really just a little bit of strength and monsters, it will take a matter of minutes to kill them." Mo Qingfeng said. Lu Zan nodded, and while using his perception ability to explore in advance, he slowly walked in. Every time he takes another step, he can learn more about the scientific research doctor and the situation behind the monsters. He can also find out whether there are more powerful monsters hiding and attacking behind. After Lu Zan walked in for more than 500 meters, his perception suddenly came through the wall, and he saw the empty desert outside and the human warriors pointing their guns into the sky. "Have you thoroughly investigated the entire building like this?" The moment his perception penetrated the wall, Lu Zan was stunned for a moment and muttered in an incredible tone. After probing for so long, the perception ability has not reached the end of another section, as if it is testing the patience of others and invisibly telling the person who is probing that this is a building that will never end. When Bai Mo and Bai Mo heard Lu Zan's voice, they immediately turned to look, so Lu Zan explained again, "My perception ability has penetrated the entire building and seen everything outside. The only remaining building space behind the monsters and scientific research doctors is all. After knowing everything, there are no more powerful monsters hiding. At the very end of the entire experimental building, there are only 4 monsters and a doctor left." "That's all?" Mo Qingfeng asked in disbelief. Lu Zan nodded heavily and responded, "This result is really unexpected. I thought they used the super giant python as a security guard. There must be a stronger monster inside. If there are only a few of them, it seems that solving the problem won't be a problem." Bai Rikong said coldly. "I hope that's the case." Lu Zan murmured yearningly, "If there are no other monsters and conspiracies, it will be easy to solve." After the sound fell, the 3 of them slowly walked in again. Now they were only left with the last 200 meters away from the doctor and the 4 monsters. 150 meters. 100 meters. 50 meters. Whoosh. When Lu Zan and the other 3 approached the doctor and were only a few steps away from each other, the 4 guard-like monsters moved and jumped out one after another like lightning. Apparently they had discovered the powerful human beings who were gradually approaching. "Come back." The moment they moved, the doctor, who had always had a calm expression, said calmly. In an instant, the 4 monsters that jumped out 5 or 6 meters turned back one by one and returned to the doctor's side. Lu Zan, who saw this scene with his perception ability from dozens of meters away, was stunned. He didn't expect that this doctor, who looked as weak as an ordinary person, was really the supreme leader of this group of monsters. With just one word, he could make those 4 the ferocious-looking monster obeyed unconditionally. Although Lu Zan had expected it before, there was still a little bit of disbelief in his heart. Now that he saw it with his own eyes, the visual impact was too great. "Strong men of mankind, you are welcome to come here." When Lu Zan and others had to pass through another wall to see the monster leader doctor actually took the initiative to speak out the welcome words loudly, and immediately pointed out the discovery their behavior of sneaking in. Now that both sides know each other's existence, there is no need to hide or carry out surprise attacks. The moment Lu Zan saw the doctor and the monster through the wall, he stared directly at him and said in a puzzled and surprised tone, I didn't expect that when I came to the deepest part of the experimental building, what I saw was you. You really surprised me, Doctor. It's you. The moment the doctor saw Luzon, he was stunned for a moment and thought of his origin and identity. Then he narrowed his eyes and looked at Luzon, and said in a slightly surprised tone. Obviously, the doctor couldn't believe that Luzon could appear here. Ah, Luzon sneered, and said with a hint of self-deprecation in his tone, I didn't expect that a little person like me would be cared about by a famous doctor. Can I say this is an honor? Ha ha. The doctor also smiled coldly, stared at Luzon with cold eyes, and said with a hint of displeasure in his tone, I don't care who you are or what your relationship was with me in the past, but I want to solemnly remind you never to call me some nasty doctor, but call me God Emperor, otherwise I will be unhappy. What? God Emperor? When Luzon first heard the doctor whose life he saved called him God Emperor, he couldn't help but was completely shocked. He didn't expect that he would say such shameless and arrogant words. However, since the doctor dares to call himself the God Emperor, he must be accepted as the supreme leader in this experimental building, and he is the one to whom all monsters, including the giant python, must bow before him. It almost means that it was probably him who created such a big movement and created so many monsters. Ha ha. Luzon just smiled coldly and said, Drive God Emperor, as your savior, I think I should have a reason to know what is going on, right? Ha ha ha. Dr. God Emperor sneered coldly. You have guessed and seen it, is this still interesting? Luzon looked at Dr. God Emperor with dagger-like eyes, and said coldly, It seems that you are really the mastermind behind this, and the root cause of all this evil. So what if it is, so what if it's not? Dr. God Emperor's wrinkled face looked like it could kill a fly with a slight hint of disdain. Luzon did not expect that Dr. God Emperor was not nervous or scared at all when faced with the approach of powerful human beings. On the contrary, he seemed to look down on Luzon and the others. It seemed that he must have some other tricks up his sleeve. Although Luzon had used his perception ability to explore the experimental building, there were no other monsters except the 5 of them. However, looking at Dr. God Emperor's relaxed and indifferent appearance, he would never dare to be so arrogant without any powerful killing moves at hand. Even a super python can be used as a bodyguard to guard the passage. That trump card will definitely be more powerful than the python. Luzon understood that he had to release his sensory abilities at all times to observe every move around him. If there was any trouble, he would react immediately. It seems that I really made a very stupid decision at that time. If I had known better, I wouldn't have risked my life to rescue you. Luzon said with a sneer. Young man, you are too naive. Dr. God Emperor shook his head and said with a cold smile, You are not saving me, nor any scientists involved in the research, but your comrades. If we are captured by the Wa family and other forces, they will not only save us, but also our comrades. They will not kill us, but will treat us as guests and ancestors, because we are valuable to them. And your teammates, your comrades are of no value to them, so, there is no such thing as your rescue. It cost me my life. He he he. Hearing what Dr. God Emperor said, Luzon just smiled coldly. He didn't expect that the other party would be so shameless and wanted to clarify the strange relationship between the two people. But if we really study it carefully, Dr. God Emperor was right. The one Luzon saved was not him, but Xiaohu and 5 other comrades. Luzon felt that he, Xiaohu and others were really a bit shameful. He should have taken away the research results at that time and left them to live or die. Why do they need to be hunted down like a lost dog by the Wa family just to take them with them? The other 4 scientists may be innocent, but even if they are rescued, they will be killed later, creating a group of monsters and innocent casualties at the same time, so why bother? What a shame. I have to say, you are indeed a genius. Dr. God Emperor narrowed his eyes slightly, stared at Luzon with his turbid eyes, and said in a plain and old voice, The last time I saw you, I never felt such a strong feeling in you. I didn't expect to meet you again. The aura on your body is so powerful that it's suffocating. You have become a first-class master in the army. I'm afraid I can't guarantee that I will let one of my 4 guardians fight you alone. You can win. Ha ha. Luzon just smiled coldly and said, It seems that you are no longer the same person as before. You can even tell the strength of my aura. There are even 4 masters and pythons that can destroy you. It's amazing how the monster of girls works for you. Dr. God Emperor did not respond to Luzon's words. A look of satisfaction appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he nodded and said, "From a weakling to a first-class master in the world of human special forces, your growth rate is indeed terrifying. Don't let others marvel at your cultivation talent. I'm afraid that except for these guys whose genes have been modified by my drugs, there is no animal in the world that can improve faster than you." Ah, Luzon sneered. He was not happy because the doctor praised him. Instead, he rubbed his nose and asked calmly, "I really want to know that the country is so good to you and gives you all the most generous treatment. Send you the purpose for your children to go to the most superior schools is to allow you to worry less and devote yourself to your work more fully, to research unknown scientific problems, and to benefit the people in the country. I don't understand. You don't have to worry about food and drink, and it's just a matter of words to ask for rights. Why do you still deceive the country and the people and create such a group of monsters that harm everyone? Logically speaking, most people with doctorates and master's degrees are no different from nerds. They are basically obsessed with the things they like. Except for what they are currently doing and what they like to do, other things are of no importance to them, unimportant. PhDs in scientific research generally do not have desires and desires. When they reach this level, they no longer have to worry about food and clothing. They just want to do a good job in the scientific research at hand and produce a result that shocks the world. As long as that result is produced, they will be appreciated by people all over the world and receive an honor that is more valuable than any material thing. However, Dr. God Emperor was doing better than others, so why did he betray and kill those scientists who had studied with him for a long time? Ha 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 ha. When Dr. God Emperor heard Luzon's words, he seemed to have heard some joke. He couldn't help laughing and said, "Why betrayed? Ha ha, you actually asked me why I betrayed. Good birds die by breaking trees. Even birds, animals know how to make the best choice for themselves. Do I, as an advanced creature on Earth, not know how to make choices? You are right, the country has indeed been very good to us. We are assigned houses to live in, and every time we develop a new formula or medicinal technique, we are rewarded with a generous bonus, even in Shengjing City, Beijing, Shanghai and Guangzhou where land is precious. In a big city where land is at a premium, we won a house as a reward. Even if we haven't researched anything, the country will give us a salary of millions every year, which is enough for us to eat and drink. We have been allocated cars and houses, and there is also a monthly living allowance. The money is given every day. We couldn't even finish the food in a 5-star hotel. You said that the country has given me everything, including every guarantee, allowing me to work with complete peace of mind. Should I be grateful to the country and praise its goodness from generation to generation?" Hearing what Dr. God Emperor said, Luzon nodded and replied, "Yes, you should have such a mentality, but why would you betray me?" Hehehehe. As if he had heard some funny joke, Dr. God Emperor smiled coldly again and said, "But all this is the respect I earned through my own efforts. Is it given to me by the country for no reason? If I didn't have the ability to do biological research and was like the most ordinary wage earner or homeless person in society, would he guarantee me a house to live in, food and clothing, and prevent me from starving to death? He, you are an excellent soldier in the human army and can be considered a representative of the country. Can you tell me that this is possible?" When Dr. God Emperor said this, Luzon was immediately speechless and didn't know how to respond, because he was right that this was indeed impossible. "Are you speechless?" Dr. God Emperor sneered and continued with a playful expression. "Without my sufficient efforts and dedication, how could I have been treated as I am today? What did the country help me? What did it give me? If you can tell me, I will kill myself in front of you. You talk about social security and immobility chaos, but you soldiers in military uniforms paid for it with your lives. Even if we are not led and controlled by this country, others will take control and establish another country. Maybe it's not impossible for us people to live a better life. The money I spent studying when I was a child was all saved up by my parents to go to school. My parents worked hard to earn this income. Could it be that the state printed money and gave it to them? My food is all earned by my parents, my illness and hospitalization are all my parents' money, and every penny of it is hard-earned money. Tell me, what did the country give me? Everything I have today is a gift from my parents and earned through my own efforts. I have never received anything from the country for free. If our country, like other countries outside, provides free medical treatment to the people, provides free education to all education sectors, and provides living security, social pensions, etc. to those who are unemployed. Maybe I will be ashamed of the country's kindness to me in the past. Maintain this well and do your best to repay it. But everything is the result of my hard work. What do you think I should thank the country for, and why should I be ashamed of it? On the contrary, the country and the people should thank me. It is I who have created countless scientific research results that have benefited the country and the people. Tell me, what do I thank the country for? What does it have that I can thank for? When Dr. God Emperor said this, Luzon didn't know what to say for a moment. Dr. God Emperor is right when he says that he does not owe the country anything. On the contrary, the country owes him something to thank him for. The country not only thanks him, but also thanks all the people across the country, because they are all taxpayers. If there are no people paying taxes, the country will not be able to survive. Those who raise pigs need to pay taxes, the slaughterhouses that kill pigs need to pay taxes, those who sell pork need to pay taxes, and the factories that make feed need to pay taxes. In the end, when pork reaches the people's mouths, half of what they eat is taxed. We really need to remove these superimposed taxes and collect only the tax on the sale of pork. A pound of pork will be at least nearly half cheaper when it reaches consumers. Anyone doing business is not a philanthropist, and it will definitely add costs to consumers. Many people think that if they don't pay taxes on their salary, they are not taxpayers. In fact, as long as they are a consumer, they are already honorable taxpayers. Dr. God Emperor is indeed right. The country should thank scientists and even ordinary people who have contributed silently. It is the country that owes the people, not the people who owe the country. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.